Okay, I like Reyna's gumption, but disregard everything else that we just saw because the most handsome man in StarCraft 2 with that beautiful facial hair, DarK, you look like a villain that's going to tie my girl to train tracks. Give him a top hat. He's going to look fantastic. I cannot believe it looks even better than it used to, Wardy. It's brilliant.
I mean, yeah, I've never had that image myself, James, but now you mention, I guess, if anyone was going to tie your girlfriend to train tracks, yeah, why not DarK?
He's got his top hat, you know, he's got some like 1920s music. It's a silent film. It's going to be great, twirling his mustache. Anyway, that was a slight tangent. I do apologize. Okay, we've got our first match coming up. It is going to be DarK versus GuMiho. The facial hair is not quite there in that picture, but in the video, oh my jeez Louise. Oh, he's fantastic. Okay, Ben, serious time. DarK versus GuMiho. Obviously, GuMiho, I think he's looked great during this bracket, and he really has been tested in every facet. He's had to now go up when he goes up against DarK, against every single race here. Great players in that as well. So what are we thinking coming in for DarK and GuMiho?
I mean, you can't go all serious on me, James, after that little segment. Like, now I'm imagining DarK with his little bowler hat on, you know, carrying barrels on and off the train. And after he's done that, he's carrying a girlfriend and tying her to some tracks.
Sorry,
but no. I think stylistically, this one's actually very, very hard for GuMiho. Like, GuMiho, I was thinking about it earlier. I was like, he is one of the more fluke GSL winners of all time. But it's like he played really well and he beat really good players. But it was like every player that he went up against, especially Sue in the final, it was a player that was exceptional, but stylistically it was very good for him because Sue, as good and fast as he is when it came to like dealing with mech specifically and all the spellcasters, he was bad at it. Whereas DarK, I feel he's a guy that's got all the answers for that kind of stuff, and he's the guy that can really shut it down before it gets going as well if he wants to.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really hard player for GuMiho to go up against.
Wardy, your thoughts coming in?
Yeah, I gotta agree kind of with what Ben says. I think GuMiho has been very good at being creative and being very different in this matchup, but if there's one player who's very good at that, it's DarK, and DarK's so good at scrapping out games, and obviously GuMiho likes to kind of get into scrappy games too. Like, GuMiho's not the clean, macro, control the entire way through kind of player. He is, it's gonna be messy, it's gonna be grueling, and DarK's just so good in those situations. So I think on paper, my favorite DarK, I'd say in recent form, I'd favorite DarK. So yeah, but I think it's gonna be a fun series though, because definitely one of these matchups where DarK can kind of spice it and do anything. GuMiho can absolutely do a whole bunch of different things. So
yeah.
In terms of what we're gonna see, I think it'll be really fun.
And to be super fair to GuMiho, he did take out Hero in this tournament, which I would not put him as the favorite against whatsoever. So he has showcased that he's actually performing pretty good. And I think of like lots of people that came back from the army, like he's definitely been doing solid for himself. So who knows? And he has been to those upper echelons where he has won things like GSL. So, and I mean, this is a massive tournament. It's going to be a massive one.
Yeah, definitely. I think this is, as I've stated every single day, it's a great opportunity for GuMiho, currently teamless, to really kind of ramp up even just the practice schedule to make himself look as good as possible, Wardy, here, and potentially move on through. As you say, DarK is quite the combatant, though, to go up against in this scenario, to make a name for yourself against.
He is, but like, I mean, yeah, you take down Hero. The thing is, GuMiho is not someone I say can't take down DarK. He definitely can. Yeah. Just again at the highest level, when the stakes are at their highest as well, right? And this is a big qualifying match. That's when DarK turns it on. That's when he gets rid of these silly proxy hatches that he's been playing in online cups or testing out things. Like, he's going to come in seriously, and yeah, it's going to be a bit weird and wonky, but he's going to bring his best weird and his best wonky to absolutely make sure that he wins this series, because for him, it's a super good chance to qualify through. So I think all of that just hounds against GuMiho's chances, but that makes it for just a bit of a better underdog story, doesn't it?
It's just, it's so hard for GuMiho here, because, like, you know, we all know he likes mech and stuff, but mech requires those kind of greedy builds to get into it more often than not. And if you're playing against a guy that, you know, can do this random roach attack or like a baneling bust at any point, which we've seen him do, yeah, it's so scary for GuMiho in every way, shape, and form. I can't emphasize enough how much of a like style discrepancy this is.
All right, well, thank you very much, gentlemen. Now time to head on over to the commentators to bring you this match. It will be an opportunity to qualify for Gamers 8. Let's head over to the commentators for all the action.
Thank you very much, Kalaris. My name is Loco. I'm joined here by Mr. Pig. It's time for our very first qualifying match of the day. It's going to be a best-of-5 series between well, some of my personal favorites. I mean, I don't want to be a biased commentator, but I love watching both DarK as well as GuMiho compete. And I mean, when they're playing against each other, I think we're gonna get fireworks.
Absolutely. Strategic clash there, unpredictable players, both of them, and always exciting to see how the cookie crumbles when you've got that very creative player that likes to be aggressive in GuMiho, but that works much better when your opponent's a little predictable, when you can put them in a box. I think the guys on the desk did a great job of really giving us a preview into this series, and what a map to start it out on. Down here at the bottom left of the biggest map in the entire pool, this is Dragon Kaiser Gaming's DarK.
And all the way in the opposite corner of Altitude, with the blue SCVs, we're looking at the main base of GuMiho. You know, Pig, I love in that interview that we just watched, right, that DarK is calling out the Terrans for being cheesy, right? He's saying, yo, only the Terran players, they like to cheese. Us Zerg players and the Protoss players out there, we like to play standard macro games, but it's always the Terran players that get cheesy. It's kind of ironic to me that it's DarK, of all people, who decides to make a call like that, right? Because Wardy already brought it up. He loves going for proxy hatcheries. I mean, bailing busts, Roach Ravager pushes. He'll skip link speed. He'll go quick lair. If there's a Zerg player at a high level out there that likes to play cheesy, I think everybody's thinking of DarK, yet he's saying, nah, we don't cheese. It's just the Terrans.
I like that he pretends he's allied with Protoss in that. I'm pretty sure every top Protoss player thinks DarK is like the dirtiest guy ever. Like, he's always pulling out these disgusting, sneaky strategies, catching them off guard with these like 1 in a million plays. So he's always a bit cheeky though, and I love it. DarK's not afraid to be a little bit facetious or a bit funny in his interviews. He's always been a confident lad that sometimes stirs people up a little bit, gets people either excited to cheer for him or to cheer against him. I mean, I think if this was a little bit more like wrestling, he'd probably actually be a heel for sure.
Yeah, maybe that's going to be a career switch at some point, man. It's going to be next decade. I can't wait, but we've got ourselves a comment setter first right here to start things off for GuMiho, and I gotta say I kind of like it. Even though DarK does like to play greedy and he does like to play quite cheesy, usually it'll come with like a roach push in this matchup, right? That on a map like this, you already brought it up, the rush distance on Altitude, it's just a really large map. It just takes a long time to get your units across. So if you're gonna play a best of 5 series against DarK and you want to go for a command center first and you're playing Altitude, I mean, I think it's a great way to start things off.
Yeah, it's really interesting to think about the strategies because Altitude is such an extreme map. As these series go on, obviously best of 5 maps will be played. 1 map vetoed for each player, which means they vetoed the most extreme maps. But despite that, the most favored maps will be picked game 1, game 2 by each player of their respective races. As it goes on, the maps are going to get more standard. But here on Altitude, it's a huge map, which means Battle Mech does exceptionally well. GuMiho is an expert at mech. But if you know he's going to go mech, there is a very simple build that has an extremely high win rate versus GuMiho. That is, of course, the Queen Drop Roach Ling push, right? The German taxi. Sol has taken GuMiho out so many times with that because he's usually relying on like Banshees or something to defend him. You bring a few Queens across in an Overlord, morph an Overseer, and those Banshees suddenly can't do anything. Hellions get beaten by Roaches, checkmate, right? I think if GuMiho is really on his A game, he's either going to be preparing for something like that or just a big 1-1 Roach bust in the mid game. I actually think there's a very high likelihood GuMiho plays Bio this map, just for the surprise factor. I don't think he wants to be too predictable in this series, and I expect him to swap back and forth between styles.
We'll have to see exactly what he decides to go for here, as he's now just opening up with a relatively, well, standard build here, right? Very economically focused, so he wants to make sure that he can at the very least face off against the Zerg player without being forced to deal a lot of damage. But there we have the tech left switch already, so the nice thing about going for Banshees, I'm assuming it's going to be a Banshee. It starts off with a Viking at the very least, but he also does get Cloak. The nice thing about these Banshee starts is that they're also good at shutting down a lot of the Zerg early game aggression. And even though DarK is not going for anything, it seems, I mean, we haven't seen a Roach Warren. He hasn't cancelled his Zergling speed. He hasn't done anything wonky. Just a nice, safe way to start with, well, having a lot of economy on the back of it as well.
Yeah, such a quick third command center. And double gas goes up on the natural. It is going to be mech game 1. My prediction falls flat on its face. But you know what? It's actually a good matchup in that DarK, like you said, hasn't got quick gases or a Roach Horn. So no real push potential out of him. He doesn't have an early lair on the way. If he were to do something like that Queen Drop build, it might be hitting a little late. Still an option, but definitely one that's on the back foot. Whoa. Double armory, GuMiho? What? That is
double
before
armory.
even getting an extra factory. That's crazy, Loco. That's so fast.
Yeah, this is a very cheeky little build. Normally, especially with Battle Mech, we see that armor upgrade prioritized quite a bit, right? Because the Cyclones, they don't really benefit from the attacks as much. But this is incredibly quick double armory, so I'm curious to see what he's gonna do with it. I mean, the only thing that really makes sense, I guess, is a timing attack when 2 upgrades finish right at the same time, but we'll have to see. He decides to go for a Raven as well. Like, in a way, this is very much so unexplored territory still, right? Even after 13 years of StarCraft 2, we've seen all of the varieties and all of the different flavors of Bio-Terran time and time again, but this is very much so still up in the air. Now he's not starting up any upgrades, though. Okay, there we go.
There we go. Yeah, he'll be starting them now. I think it's going to be traditional mech. I don't think there's a reason to play battle mech and double upgrades at the same time. So I think we're going to see tanks pretty early, and that might prompt DarK to play swarm hosts, in which case that'll push GuMiho to go into the Cyclones and the battle mech focus. So he is getting the mag field upgrade already and preparing for that, but I don't expect GuMiho to just full commit to Cyclones. If he does, I mean, color me surprised, because I'll just be like, if he builds more than 2 or 4 Cyclones without building a siege tank, this build is essentially, it's just so greedy. It's essentially him saying, I want to have a very fast 2-2, a very fast 3-3. I want my very late game to be powerful. This comes at a huge cost. He's been very wide open to any attack, and he continues to be wide open. He doesn't have any insurance, no Banshees, no siege tanks, nothing that can defend a fierce push from DarK. Luckily for him, DarK is droning up his 4th base and doesn't seem to have any intention to be aggressive just yet. I still, of course, am waiting to see, though, what can the Cyclones get done. I think the Raven there already getting some value, saving a few scans.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely with you. The fact that DarK has decided to not just make mass roach off of 66 workers here is gonna be really nice for Gumi, because he just won't have a lot of units, right? Like, if there were to be a +1/+1 roach speed timing attack, like the most standard push that we usually see from Zergs against this sort of unit composition, I think Gumi would be in a lot of trouble. He's gonna have a lot of command centers, he's gonna have great upgrades, but he's gonna have like 12 units. And last time I checked, that doesn't do so well against like 40 roaches. That being said, though, got those drones at the 4th base, right? He's doing a lot of creep spread, he's going pathogen glands, Hydra den. DarK is ready to play a late game as well, and I think this is going really nicely for GuMiho because of that greed.
Yeah, definitely. 1-1 upgrades already finishing here. The Hellion Raven continuing just to keep the creep in check. They're not going deep, not overcommitting. But DarK hasn't been able to throw a spanner in the works. And if you just let a player play this greedy into mech, man, I mean, look at that. 2 command centers building, so a 4th, 5th, and 6th command center starts up. He's already up on at least 5 factories. I believe a 4th and 5th are building add-ons right now. 2-2 starts up. The tanks are building. And DarK, of course, with a very quick hive. He's going to be going Vipers. I wonder, will we see a quick Ghost transition? As Vipers are just such a big problem for mech.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We'll see a lot of spellcasters coming out of the Zerg here soon, and you need something to deal with it. Oftentimes we see a combination of like Vikings and, well, sometimes Ghosts as well, but that's usually where Terran players are still a little experimentative, right? Like they're trying their best to figure out exactly when to make that transition, because it's difficult to make the call to go straight towards Ghosts, but you need something to address those spellcasters that DarK is definitely going for here. I mean, the hive is already finishing up. We're 8.5 minutes into the game. I think like 4 units have maybe gone down up to this point. Both players just playing a heavy macro game.
I mean, we always say that we see the most extreme games on big maps, right? It's either like really aggressive, someone's just trying to get the other player out of the game, or they're both being really greedy, right? Because it's such extreme greed on these maps. And here we go. GuMiho is just kind of like, hey, let's add transformation servos. Why not? I think he's already got Blue Flame as well. He does bring this drop home, surprisingly. A bit of an odd choice there. And the upgrades, of course, looking much better. Vipers popping out now. They're going to start gathering energy for those abducts. DarK has a healthy supply lead and no sign of a Ghost transition just yet. Definitely looking like a situation where, as good as DarK's tech is, I don't think Vipers alone are going to be game winners, Loco. Because even if you abduct a bunch of Cyclones, this is a 6 command center Terran, 7 command centers already. He's going to be able to replace them very quickly.
DarK's going for the Lurker Den together with the Nidus network, and that is the classic 1-2 punch where they try to get those Lurkers inside of the opponent's main base. If you can burrow them right on top of the production, it's really difficult for the Terran player to stop. And if you then hit at the same time as well with a big push right at the front, that can oftentimes be lethal. But, I mean, it is always something that takes a little bit of luck, right? At this level, from GuMiho, we should not expect that those Niduses are just going to go up uncontested. But we'll have to see exactly what his plan is. I mean, both players just happy to macro up here, right? I mean, the creep spread's looking pretty good as well, despite the fact that a lot of tumors did get shut down. And now finally, with the Viper energy available, there you go. We're going to see some trades.
Oh, Raven even getting sniped. Great abducts there by DarK. And I think what's really interesting about this is it's not that surprising that GuMiho, a mech player, is choosing to defend. It's surprising that DarK is, right? The fact that DarK is only poking and prodding and nothing else. Now he throws a Lurker, a Nidus up in the main, which will be popping Lurkers out if he gets a chance. But that is going to be denied promptly. GuMiho now aware of this. We'll leave a Viking on that right side to deny future overseers. Here we go. Abducts on the front. Take out a tank. Hellbat drops on top of the Hydralisks. Oh, their close range splash damage doing big damage. Really nice move for GuMiho, and that's going to prompt him to counter push. He's going to come right across this map. It is equal upgrades, 2-2 versus 2-2, and Lurkers are morphing their range upgrades on the way, but DarK still has a lot of supply in Roaches. He's going to have to try to slow down this push.
Yeah, I love the addition of the Medivacs in this particular army comp. It's not something we see all the time, but GuMiho is making it work. That being said, though, here he comes once again, dropping all of those blue flame Hellbats right on top of those very vulnerable Hydras that were trying to be guarded right there by the Roaches. And GuMiho is making a very dangerous move here. I mean, there should be a couple of Lurkers out at this point. There they are, harassing the 4th command center at the 12 o'clock.
Oh, he can repair that right now. The Lurkers aren't in range for their splash damage to take it out. GuMiho will keep that base up for now. He's going into Mass Thor Hellbat right now. And the thing is, that composition loses hard to Lurker Viper. He's got to be careful. I mean, Thors can shoot down the Vipers pretty well if your your attack isn't on cooldown. The real trick here is DarK needs to engage with his ground army a little ahead of the Vipers to take the first Thor shots. Then the Vipers can get their spells off correctly. If the Vipers are in front of the army, they will get sniped.
Here we go once again. As soon as the Terran army's distracted on the left, the Zerg army's moving in on the right as well. And that's some really nice abductions, though. The Medivacs, once again, coming in clutch. Really nice blinding cloud, though, forcing a lot of those Terran units to actually get within range of even the Hydras in the back. Now the command center itself will be targeted down, and this is gonna get destroyed.
Great moves here by DarK, doing a lot with a pretty basic army comp of Roach, Hydra, Zergling, but those Vipers added to it, just giving him so many opportunities. And I think GuMiho is feeling a little annoyed at how those last few fights went. Down to 62 workers, losing that command center, barely ahead in the units lost tab, making the slowest composition in the game is meant to give you good, efficient, effective fights. But now that he's shown his hand on the Hellbat drops, I don't know if that's going to be working too well, and yet he seems to be doggedly committing. More Thors, more Hellions, more Medivacs on the way. No ghost transition in sight. GuMiho wants to make it or break it with this style.
Yeah, and that makes me a little concerned. It's not like the DarK, that is, can just make one army here, right? I mean, DarK is on a good economy. He's got some money in the bank as well. He can remax very quickly. So as long as he's taking a fight on the Terran side of the map, which he's setting up right now, massive surround coming in from the right as well. Huge drop right here, though, from the Terran.
Massive Hellbat drops break through that southern flank. DarK's army, almost pure Hydralisk, getting routed. I was telling you guys, Lurkers are the counter to this army. DarK is trying to stay more mobile with the Hydras. He focuses down some Medivacs, great micro, but he gets punished for it. 7 Hydras go down to the Hellbats immediately. Beautiful maneuvers here by GuMiho, and the Hellbat drops paying off. More Lurkers trying to morph, but the thing is, he's doing it so late that now GuMiho is able to take up position down this ramp. Fantastic push power by GuMiho, who has a crazy stream of production. 3 Thors, 5 Hellions, 2 Medivacs coming across the map at a time. The Nidus Worm is exposed. That is a big wall of 3 Thors.
I don't see any Vipers anymore, Pig, and that is going to make this fight so much more difficult right here for DarK. There's those Lurkers, though, trying their very best to get into position. Apparently, the Hellbat drop will be used against that as well to just try and soak up as much damage as possible. DarK desperately trying to reinforce this with as many Roaches as he can. Will he be able to clean this up? A lot of those Terran units, they're very high in supply, but very low in HP. But so far, DarK is not jumping on the ones that are red.
Oh man, I don't know. GuMiho pulled this build straight out of 2018. This is absolutely sick. We haven't seen Elbat drops in so long, but they're very difficult to deal with, and you need to make sure you've got plenty of splash damage, either lurkers or banelings, to cover you as they drop on top. And DarK just made that mistake. He was getting so many good fights of pushing across the map with just pure Hydra Viper, and we see that without anything else, Hydra Viper does not do well against Elbat drops.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised he didn't have like 10, maybe 10, 15 lurkers or so with his main army, right? He was using the lurkers exclusively for the counter-attack up north, but he really needed something that had a little bit more staying power with his actual army there. So now GuMiho is finding himself in a really good position, but is it a game-winning one, right? He's been using this time as well to secure another command center on the right side of the map, but at the very least, DarK for now gets a little bit of room to breathe. He tries his very best to just have as much economy as possible, and he's gonna have to remax on as strong an army as he can as well. But GuMiho right now, yeah, there you go, he finds the drones as well. He's feeling pretty good about this game.
If DarK was an ordinary Zerg, I'd say he's basically out of the game, but this is DarK we're talking about, the king of Ravager comebacks. He's got a big squad of Roach Ravager running down that right side of the map. He's going to try and make magic happen. The Ravager, a very cheap and accessible unit. Not that cheap, really, but definitely very accessible and very massable. Takes out a couple of libs there. One of the libs actually barely... not even dodging the biles, but DarK missing those a little bit. The Roach Ravager trying to find a bit of damage. Of course, his economy is lower than the Terrans. He needs to be exceptionally efficient. A lurker gets caught. The Thors are going to cut off the retreat. Oh no, the Medivacs give such mobility to GuMiho.
I love the fact that he's flanking with Thors inside of Medivacs. There's no way for this Zerg army to run right now, though. He's trying to escape, but like you said, those Ravagers, they're not particularly cheap. He's gonna lose every single last one of them, and it's critical that DarK musters up a force once again. This is actually such a sick defense right here, man. If you're a Terran player out there, you don't want to transition towards Ghosts, highly recommend giving Blue Flame Hellbats a drop against the Zerg, because this is really, really working well here for Gumi.
Here we go. Siege Tank Planetary on the left side. Tank's going to get biled down. Mass Repair comes in, but the biles spread across those repairing SCVs. And GuMiho is going to be forced to counter push because this base will fall. Great attack for DarK. He's got a lurker harassing on the right side as well. Getting lots of SCV kills. Hellbat's moving over to clean that one up. The army of GuMiho much slower to push, but oh, it is a lot of tank production he's got. The Roach Ravager starting to take heavy losses there. They are going to bile across the ramp, though. Do not want to lose your production here as GuMiho. On the other hand, how do you ever deal with this army? Yeah. Oh my lord, that's a lot of mech.
Yeah, the Roach Warren and the Lurker Den are also right exposed at the front of the natural. GuMiho feeling so confident right now. He's splitting up his army into 3 separate chunks. He is trying to win this game with the units that he's got, and he wants to defend at home with all of the reinforcements. As soon as the Zerg breaks the main base, maybe he's going to be in some trouble, but as long as the main base stays okay, I don't think that GuMiho can really give up this game anymore. There's so many units waiting inside of the main base too. DarK can't get in there, and he can't deal with his army.
If there was burrowed infestors, I would believe, Loco. Obviously, Neural Parasite, especially when all the command centers are either taken out or lifted, can bring you back. But just 6 Ravagers, 21 Roaches, it's going to be a tall ask. Half the army supply, a much more basic composition. And of course, the Terrans still can drop orbitals and mine mules like crazy. GuMiho is a bit gas-starved right now. And DarK's got to try to find a way to split this army up and pick it off piecemeal. Here we go. Hellbat's dropping to defend that. One siege tank falls. Another one goes down. Nice skirmishing tactics from DarK so far.
Yeah, he's trying to make the best of a rough situation, right? And he figured my best chance right here is to go for a full-on counterattack. This is, of course, an important tournament match, and he certainly wants to try his very best to obtain the victory. But if this was a ladder game, I'm fairly sure that DarK would already have GG'd out at this point, because there's just not really a whole lot that he can do. These Medivacs, man, they have been absolute gold. He's going to use them right now as well to regroup all of these units together. DarK still does have a pretty good fighting army over here. He's gonna get a siege tank. He's probably gonna get, oh, he loses a Ravager, but he's probably gonna get one of the Hellbats there too. It's just that, okay, maybe there's a very small chance if GuMiho decides to not land another command center and drop mules, because he is just sort of sitting on the army that he's got right now, and he's not trying to re-expand. That's the only thing that's throwing me off a little bit, but I think
he's looking a little paranoid there, isn't he, Loco? And I understand why. I mean, this is what DarK does. Even when he has pretty much no chance, we're like maybe 2% chance to win this game, and that's a pretty positive way of looking at things, I would say. But he's just making GuMiho go through the paces and work for it. DarK is so hard to put out of the game. Even when you've got him beat, it still takes so many punches to knock this man unconscious. He's such a powerful Zerg player. And look at that, just hit and run tactics, picks off a few L-bats, biles down a tank, wounds some other units. Hellions on the right side try to come in, aren't able to find anything just yet. GuMiho's army is deep in the red and orange now.
Yeah. I really don't like the fact that Gumi has not actually tried to re-expand. I mean, he's got a lot of command centers. He's just not really using them. He's trying to win the army, or he's trying to win the game with this army right here. But like you said, a lot of these units are very low HP. A couple more corrosive balls like the ones we've been seeing over the last few minutes. And there's a chance that DarK actually beats this force. He's got a new base up and running right now. He's going to be able to start making links again as well, it seems. He's just desperately trying to scramble up whatever army he's got. There's drones moving towards the top left-hand corner too. If DarK wins this, man, I am going to be so surprised. But Gumi is just not expanding. He's not doing anything.
Yeah, no, he's just focusing on the army. He feels like DarK doesn't have any realistic tech or production or income on the map to really work with. So he feels, hey, as long as I micro my army correctly, that's how I win the game. If I'm looking away, I could lose a lot of army to Biles. But even when you're looking, you might lose a lot of army to Biles because you're playing DarK. The man is a wizard. He was at half the army supply a moment ago. He's building so much Roach Ravager, and there's now only a 15 army supply gap. What the heck? This is insane. He gets another Thor. GuMiho needs to get an expansion up. As you've been saying, Loco, those 3 Thors on the front line deep in the red. 2 of them go down. A medevac drops. 2 of the medevacs that had Thors in them went down there. The tanks are being broken. Oh my lord, DarK, you dirty genius. You were down and out in this game, dude. I feel like literally we got to the count of 10. He was unconscious. He springs up off the floor. His eyes are wide, focused, and somehow he is fighting back against GuMiho.
Yeah, I think GuMiho is regretting that he never retook any of the bases. He's been spending the money that he's got, but he just found out about the fact that that expansion he just killed from the Zerg wasn't the only mining base. There's another one over here in the top left-hand corner that's been uncontested for the better part of probably 5 minutes or so. He's been mining there for at least a little while, and it's been giving DarK a steady amount of income. Not a lot, but at the very least more than, well, the nothing that GuMiho has been getting here. He's now re-securing that expansion over at the third base, but this is all getting, well, very late in the game. DarK's just expanding everywhere, man. He's got the left side of the map taken right now, but he also is retaking that expansion that he just lost in the bottom right. There's not really a whole lot that GuMiho can do now that he's lost all of those low HP units of his.
Yeah, he could actually get wiped out on that third base. If DarK gathers up his Roach Ravager and goes, there's 1 tank and 1 Thor there. Yeah, it's only a handful of Roach Ravager, but he could take this out. Or 2 tanks, sorry. 2 tanks, 3 tanks actually, 1 damaged Liberator, but I mean, still the natural, this is just such a weird position for GuMiho. He's got some gas mining coming up again as well. Oh my lord, though. DarK, he's just doing the corners of the map. He's like, hey, as long as I'm mining from the corners, that's good. The SCV, Drilly Boy on scouting duty, spots them, and no doubt Hellions will be on route there. DarK realizes it's being spotted. You can see his army's moving down to that side of the map, and it's almost only Hellion production for GuMiho saying, look, if I keep roasting your drones, then my mules will win me this game, but I cannot let your economy keep going here. GuMiho starts to rebuild SCVs, and I love it. Banshees and Cloak on the way, so smart.
Yeah, beautiful spot right there by DarK, though. He sees that medevac coming in, so he knows there's going to be Blue Flame Hellbat drops here very soon. There's not a lot of anti-air for the Zerg, though, as in, well, maybe 1 queen at best. So these Cloak Banshees, they can certainly be amazing, but I'm still a little flabbergasted by the fact that GuMiho was sitting on like 4, maybe even 5 orbital commands. And he just didn't do anything with them. He just, well, he was fighting with his main army, and then he ended up losing that army, despite the fact that that is where all of his attention was at. I think if he would have been mining all that time, he would have been in a significantly better spot in his game. But now he's up with his back against the wall. He's trying his best to... I think he's still in a winnable position right here, right? Like, this spot is still good for him, but it is so much more difficult than this needed to be.
Yeah, the Hellbat's coming forward. They take out a Roach. The Spine Crawler does pretty well there. Oh, the Spore Crawler just will not go down. He tries to re-drop it. GuMiho, though, I really feel we can see the trauma of past games where he's been in a base trade like this and he's looked away from his army and it's been wiped by an ambush. Oh, look at this nice Ravager move. There is another tank there, but dude, what a good trade for DarK. Takes out a bunch of tanks. And does he get the last one? Yes, he does. Spots the Banshee as well. Massive damage for DarK, who is up on 28 drones versus 23 SCVs. He's still struggling with the harassment. Tank Hellbat Thor push on the left side. Uh-oh, you got to be careful here, GuMiho. GuMiho tries to push with those units. They need to get back to the safety of the high ground. The Hellbats finally take out the Spore Crawler. That's a big move because the fact that DarK pulled his whole army away, now you can take out the mining here. This is massive. This is really big. DarK has so little money to work with. His army's so fragile. I got to say, if this was anyone but DarK, I mean, I think there's people watching who maybe don't play at that high of a level. You might not realize almost any other Zerg, these handful of Roach Ravager armies, they run into siege tanks once and they all just die. Like, they disappear so quickly. It's actually such a fragile force, but he seems to just have this great instinct for finding the weak points.
You are 100% correct, man. DarK shines in these sort of scenarios, right? He loves these chaotic games where he is, yeah, just playing a match that has never been played before in StarCraft 2. This is one of those unique games, and DarK is incredibly good at managing it. Now his main anti-air against Banshees is Corrosive Biles, which really, again, should not work, but this is still a micro mistake away from being a win right now for the Zerg, who really was, I want to say, like 90% of the way out of this game. He's making the best of this situation right now. GuMiho, though, taking care of that base in the bottom right-hand corner. Now suddenly all of the Zerg is contained on the left side of the map, and that is going to make things a whole lot easier here for Gubi. But now the question is, when do you want to fight this? He loses a couple of different Hellbats here in the middle of the map. There are heavy hitters available right now for the Terran once again, but he is scared that he's going to make a move where, well, once again, the Corrosive Biles connect. He loses that army. He cannot re-expand here very easily, right, if he doesn't have the units. So yeah, he's playing this as safe as he possibly can right now, but that also means DarK gets a lot of time to just expand himself.
Just for context for anyone, trying to hit air units with Corrosive Bile is like trying to shoot a sidearm at a plane at 5,000 feet. It's not going to work. It's really such a long shot. Comes in for some Biles, but so many Ravagers going down. It feels like GuMiho finally stabilizes and gets this game. He was so far ahead, double the army supply for about 10 minutes, but DarK, he exhausts his opponents mentally, and even when he loses games, he defeats them mentally because they go, I know I was in a winning position so much earlier. Why couldn't I finish him? And this is how DarK builds a sort of undefeatable aura. You know, where you just start to doubt yourself because it's like, how is it so difficult? GuMiho may be looking close to securing the win, but even now, DarK gets in on the mineral line, starts to take out the workers. The Banshees are going to make him pay a very big price for it, though.
Yeah, these Banshees should eventually win the game right here for Gubi. Unless he clumps them all up and gets caught by a Bile, there's just nothing available to counter these Banshees other than a few Queens and then a couple of Spore Crawlers as well. But you're very right. Not every win counts the same, right? I mean, DarK, he probably realized that this game was mostly over literally 15 minutes ago. And he has been making the best of a very difficult game for a long time. And this is going to start hurting GuMiho mentally for sure. We're playing a best-of-5 series now. Every win is obviously great, but you got to think of the entire series. Now, there's still nothing to counter these Banshees, right? So I like the fact that DarK is here. He's trying his best, and he does get a Bile down. That is a little bit surprising because there's not really that much else, to look at after most of the other units end up going down there. But yeah, there's nothing really.
DarK has killed more air units with Corrosive Bile than any other player in the history of StarCraft. I've seen this man kill like triple digits of Zest's carriers during the Void Ray meta. Like, I literally think over 100 carriers DarK has killed with Corrosive Bile. The man's a savage, comes out with a lot of respect for how well he fought from behind. But at the end of the day, the guy who utilizes a very, very niche build, the Hellbat drop Thor style of mech, GuMiho, super greedy opening, gets away with it and steers his way to a 1-0 lead in the series.
Yeah, that was so much closer than it needed to be. In the end, it's Gumi who obtains the victory, but He's got to be pinching himself right now as well, right? Like, did that really happen just now? Like, that game was over such a long time ago, and it just got so much closer than it absolutely needed to be. Brilliant game, though, right? I mean, this is an important win right here for Gumi. Sure, I think a lot of people going into this series would predict that DarK would be the favorite, but GuMiho is showing us he can toe-to-toe. He can go toe-to-toe with the very best.
Yeah, this is such a cool game to start us off today, and it might have been a couple of 3-0s yesterday, but I think today's going to be a much more action-packed day. Lots of fun. These Hellbat drops were really good, forcing those Hydras back. Hydras, normally their advantage is their range. This one was pretty big as well. I remember there was one moment where he was trying to kite backwards with the Hydras, snipe 2 medevacs, and I thought, oh, that's really good. He just snipes 2 medevacs and gets away. And then the other 3 medevacs unloaded, and we saw like 10 Hydras just instantly evaporate. And I was like, okay, that was not worth it at all. Massive, massive trades. Yeah, this was it, actually. Beautiful. Just so well done by GuMiho. And the Hellbats are so expendable. But this gives this really scary mobile nature to the army, and it punishes someone who's a bit too focused on Hydras and Vipers.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think this game would have looked very different there if DarK had a couple lurkers mixed in as well with his main army, right? When he first went across the map, he didn't have any lurkers. You brought it up right away. When he went across the map for the second, the third, the fourth, he still didn't have any lurkers with his main force. So he ended up, just falling behind in that department there. And it allowed GuMiho to go for a big push with all of those blue flame Hellbats. Really cool style.
Very cool indeed. I do wonder if we're going to see more mech. I think that was definitely an altitude special. I don't think DarK's going to sit back as much as he did that game in game 2 or game 3. I also don't think GuMiho is necessarily going to be, willing to just play that same style of mech, because I was saying at the start of the series, he likes to play mech. It's a big map that's great for mech. I think if he keeps doing that, we will probably see the Queen drop bust that I was talking about, that Solar has defeated with him with so many times in the past. But for now, this man's just getting warmed up. He made that one a nightmare for his opponent, and it is time for him to try and get a point on the board. In the top right side, Dragon Kaiser Gaming's DarK.
And down here in the bottom left of Royal Blood with the blue SCVs winning game number 1, but he had to fight for it. This is GuMiho. The good old Gumi God. Always coming up with his own styles and his own strategies. I mean, you already mentioned it, but he's been playing mech ever since before it was cool, right? He's been playing mech for like the better part of last decade. When everybody else was playing infantry-based armies, it's GuMiho who's been experimenting with very fun stuff. Now, there's a quick spawning pool coming up right here. No gas guys are taken, though, so maybe this is DarK just trying to be safe. And if this is going to be a double barracks opener, he may very well be right.
DarK has been YOLOing a lot with roaches, especially against these double barracks builds. He does like to do the pool hatch gas right after the hatchery starts, and then just go straight into roach warren and really put the pressure onto the Terran. His roach micro is incredible, so wouldn't be surprising. GuMiho, I mean, add-ons are going to be on the outside of the wall in this spawn, but it's only 1 barracks. So This is actually fascinating. This is not the 2 barracks Reaper opening, which I really feel is past its use by date. It's being used way too much. We did not see it look good yesterday. It's got to be something that I think lowers the percentage of games in which it's used. 6 Lings on the way. Having a wall off ready on the natural can be amazing against it. The problem is, if the add-ons on the outside, I'm not sure if they can snipe that down. I think it's going to be a pretty good wall off.
Yeah, I think GuMiho is he's going to be all right here. As long as he catches those Zerglings, right? That's kind of important. Sometimes those Zerglings will take a weird route towards the other side of the map, and if, well, GuMiho doesn't see them, okay, he could be in a lot of trouble. DarK right there getting the heads up with the Overlord, and yeah, I think GuMiho should keep the Reaper at home. Yeah, it was super close.
Good instincts, though. Really good instincts. GuMiho playing super safe. He skipped the FCV scout this game, so he realizes pool first Ling pressure is always a threat, and he's just going to catch a few Zerglings for free before going across the map. Now, GuMiho is going to be on high alert because he knows that DarK often follows this opening up with a Roach Ravager push, and that means he's going to feel like he needs to get over there with that Reaper to scout. Yeah, he's expecting it. He thinks Roach Ravager is coming, even though it's not, because I would say 4 out of 5 times DarK's opened up with a pool first in the last week. It's been straight into a Roach shove. And as a result, GuMiho is already being like, oh god, get to the Banshees, get the bunker up out front, survive!
No, you're very right. He will skip the link speed and just go straight into the roach tech. So as soon as GuMiho sees that those Zerglings will get little wings, he's probably going to feel pretty good about himself. And he will likely salvage the bunker. That being said, though, this is not really a triple Rex opener a triple CC opener anymore for Gumi, as he's forced into that starport. So despite the fact that DarK didn't really get a lot of damage done, he still has a good opener in this particular game. Confusing his opponent a little bit, and he wants revenge right here for this one Overlord as well, as he's now adding on a lot of links.
Yeah, I don't think DarK's seen the bunker, maybe, as those lings are going to go for a bit of a run by. I mean, you would expect the bunker to get sold here. There's no wall off on the natural.
Yeah, it's a little scary, isn't it?
At the same time, if you know it's a little scary, you keep the Hellions at home, right? No, he's got his Marines and Hellions both going across the map. Careful, GuMiho. This is a fragile situation, and DarK wants to get in there with those Zerglings. These two are the bravest Marines I've ever seen, running to the other side of the map to try and get an Overlord kill. They're going to go for the Queen, but the natural is open right now. There's Zerglings trying to get in there. The Overlord will go down. The Queen should be able to get out of there. The Lings have breached the wall.
Yeah, I think one of the depots must have been down, because as far as I can see, there's no hole in that wall, and this is going to deal a lot of damage. Even though a few Overlord kills are nice, this is way more damage that the Zerg player is dealing right now. Of course, he did have to invest in all of those Zerglings, so it's not like he has the best economy on the back of this yet. Unless GuMiho cleans this up very quickly. I mean, there's a lot of red HP SCVs there, but unless he cleans this up very quickly, he's going to fall very far behind.
Yeah, it's really good for DarK. Great move for him, and GuMiho's going to be a bit gutted because it's a build where he had the wall off up. You said there was no hole in the wall, but he must have had a depot down, then gone back and raised it a second too late. So a bit of a mistake for GuMiho, costing him at a crucial moment in this game. And now we see he's just desperately trying to rebuild that work account. DarK massively ahead, adding a Roach Warren himself. The Banshees and the Hellions going to see if they can find some drone kills. If you can take out 5 or 10 workers here, you do have some comeback potential. If you can't find that as GuMiho, remember what you said before, no third command center. There's no extra tech or anything. Like, he's got to do damage right now.
Yeah, I love that fourth Spore Crawler as well. DarK also recognizing exactly the situation that he's in. He added one right in between the natural and the third, so it's one of those locations where, there you go, he's going to be able to shut down the Banshee. There you go. Nicely done right there by the Zerg player. And, well, especially with the Hyperflight rotors, the Banshee speed upgrade coming up, that is not what GuMiho is looking for. He wants to keep these Banshees alive for as long as possible so he can start up the harassment, right? I mean, the third command center now has begun. If you're GuMiho in this game, things may look relatively safe from your point of view so far, but DarK is just outgrowing you at a very rapid pace. Pretty much already full 3-base saturation. Lara's going to finish up very soon as well. That means he can tech up to something that's going to be much better against those speedy Banshees too. I'm liking this game a lot here for the Zerg.
I am too, especially since GuMiho apparently is trying to go bio plus speed Banshees. That's not really a composition or a style that exists. So yeah, I'm questioning it. GuMiho, I guess, just gets 3 or 4 Banshees out and uses them for harassment. He's already behind those, so if he doesn't get a lot of value out of this, it's just going to put him further back in terms of where he is. Going into a second barracks, the third command center is now finished. GuMiho is looking to round out his 2-base production as his 3rd base finishes. DarK, on the other hand, is catapulting himself to a 4th base. All of his lair tech and upgrades starting up. DarK should be able to simply throw a hammer across the map and take him out. And what I love about this is that DarK did commit to quite a few Zerglings. You know, it's not a low commitment. And against the player who's already got the wall off on the natural, it's almost a kind of crazy commitment. As the Terran, GuMiho really just, it wasn't on his radar. He's like, well, there's no reason you'd try to do a Ling run by when you know I have a wall off. DarK's like, what's the bet he leaves the wall down? I know GuMiho likes to be aggressive. I know he likes to be the one pressuring. And in this situation, I actually think he won't be looking for this option. So many players are sitting there in a StarCraft game thinking about, you know, what's good for the situation. DarK is one step ahead. He's thinking about what his opponent thinks is good and bad, and then using that to inform his decisions to catch them off.
No, I think you're absolutely right. Those Zerglings there, in a lot of games, they wouldn't get much done. If you're doing that against like a Maru, it's very unlikely that the front door is open and you can actually get the Zerglings in, so it would be a bad investment. But DarK very much so playing the opponent rather than the matchup here, as he's making himself up for a big Roach Ravager push accompanied by a Nidus network. And this is not one of those DarK games, right, where He's seen a lot of speed Banshees. He's like, okay, do I need any anti-air? I mean, maybe eventually, but I'll go for a Roach push first with some Zerglings for support, and then we'll see what's going on.
1-1 upgrade's almost finished. The Spire on the way just in case he needs it. But I do feel like just throwing Roach Ravager at the wall, you're going to find a lot of it sticks. There's not much GuMiho has. I love the double factory. I think tank production is a good idea. Always smart in these scenarios to try something a little different. Maybe DarK sits back a bit too long, and you get there. But essentially for GuMiho, I think he needs to be mentally prepared to lift his third and pull the SCVs away. Because if DarK chooses to commit to an attack, you just can't hold on.
Yeah, those Banshees are still nice because they can obviously shut down these small groups of Roaches pretty easily. DarK, I think, was considering going for an all-out assault. He's like, you know what? We're playing a big tournament match here. I'm 1-0 behind. I'll go for the safety approach instead. So he dropped down a Spire, probably as a safety precaution. But now he also went into the Infestation Pit. He'll use that to go towards the Hive here momentarily, I'm sure. And he's going for the Baneling Nest too. He's droning up. He's... yeah, dotting all of his I's and crossing all of his T's, right? Making sure that he is 100% safe against practically anything that Gumi can throw at him. Now, GuMiho does have a very large amount of siege tanks already, more than we normally see with a bio army like this. DarK actually going for a round of Mutas. Okay, I like it.
I don't know if I do. I feel like DarK is lacking killer instinct here, Loco. I'm going to be a little critical and say, I think for any other player, your analysis on like, I like it doing, you know, you said you like him doing the safe thing. And I'm like, for anyone else, I agree. For DarK, I feel like this is where he just goes and kills his opponent almost always. And for me, it feels like this isn't how DarK normally plays. So I wonder just what's going on in his head, because game one already did not look like a standard DarK game at all. He's already almost maxed on Roaches and Drones. Now he's swapping back into Lingbane Muta. Well, how do you trade this composition? It's hard to find a trade. Why is he taking so long? He's giving GuMiho a pass potentially back into the game. Now, he's hidden the mutas, so I think they're going to do good damage because there's not that many Marines at home. But if GuMiho handles these mutas okay, he can get to late game. In a game where he was down at like half the supply, half the work account, he was so far behind. But DarK seems to have misread his advantage. He is going to come with those mutas, though, see if he can find a bit of damage. Already a few SCVs are going down. No turrets are up right now. And GuMiho's going to have to scramble to make sure he doesn't take critical damage.
Yeah, luckily for him, he does have a couple reinforcing Marines here, trying to make the best of this, but I'm still liking this game a whole lot right here for DarK, although it would be nice to see him pushing at the same time with that maxed out army of his. Right now, he's just sort of sitting here, I guess, waiting for the Terran to maybe go for a big push across the map, or maybe for the Terran to try and take a fourth base. Here we go. That's that killer instinct you were talking about. It's certainly later than we would have expected it, but he's got a large army still.
SCVs need to get out of there. GuMiho should not be counter-pressuring at all right now. The Banelings are going to find the mineral line. Oh, a couple of big juicies in there. So many workers going down. There's some tanks in the back. You can see in the natural saves, 8 SCVs into a medevac. The command center needs to get repaired. GuMiho's Marines on the other side of the map do get cleaned up by those Mutalisks. Great defense by DarK. And GuMiho, you know, I thought he might have a path back into the game, but at the end of the day, DarK was, of course, massively ahead after that Ling run by, and he ties up the series 1-1.
Yeah, nice game right there by the Zerg player for sure, but I'm with you, man. I kind of like the defensive style because that's what I would probably do myself in these games, but it does feel a little uncommon from somebody like DarK, right, who really likes getting an advantage early on and who then will pretty much always go for the killing move right away. As soon as he gets a chance to obtain the victory, it will usually take it. But in this particular game, he decided to give his opponent at least a small chance to crawl his way back into it, and that is a little uncommon from somebody like DarK.
Yeah, definitely a little confused, I think. Like, we almost were as well by the Speed Banshees. Like, he saw the extra barracks, but because there were Speed Banshees being annoying, I think he almost thought it was mech for a while, and it just took him a little while to process. Hey, it's bio, and okay, I want mutas for the Speed Banshees. I guess I swap back into Lingbane because that meshes well with the mutas. And at the end of the day, I mean, it was just such a good Ling run by. They just ran right on in. And such a big problem when you don't have any units out. It's so funny because every Terran experiences, you know, Ling run bys as so easy to defend or so hard based on if their units have just popped out or not. Like, sometimes you've got 4 Hellions sitting there on the depot. They clean it up without you even looking at it. Other times, there's only units building, not a single fighting unit in your base, and your SCVs are all on their own.
So that evens up the score right here in this best of 5 series. Now, ultimately, this game was really tricky right here for Gumi because the front door was wide open when a bunch of Zerglings came across the map, right? It's really easy to, get too far down the strategic route, I suppose, and to talk about strategy all the time. But in the end, you need to keep your army, or you need to keep your economy rather alive so you can actually build an army.
It's easy to get in the mindset, Terran versus Zerg, especially if Zerg's being greedy and defensive, because they so often are. It's my job to put the pressure on them and take them out. But we all know that the expert Zerg players are waiting. They are always waiting for the Terran to misstep. And rather than just, throwing those Zerglings in, DarK waited for the Hellions and Marines to move across the map, and that was his moment. So he picked it well, picked it wisely. And he's showing some good diversity in his play. We also saw, I really wonder with GuMiho's strategy, was that the strategy he had planned for this map? Or did he kind of freeball it a little bit, freestyle it a little bit, once he found himself behind? Because Speed Banshees into Bio, into 2-factory tank production, that felt like something that was quite reactive to the situation. We'll see. Either way, let's go into Gresvan in the top left side of the map, representing Dragon Kaiser Gaming. DarK.
And his opponent down in the bottom right with the blue SCVs, he is GuMiho. Never really finding his groove in that previous game, right? Like you said, he seemed a little bit confused. I think he was reacting to what the Zerg player was doing, but I don't think his original plan was speed benches with, then a transition towards bio into double factory siege tank production. I think that was mostly just him trying to get back into the game after seeing how the opening went. And, well, it didn't work out for him there, because if there's anybody good at playing those scrappy games, it's DarK.
DarK was complaining about cheeses, right? So I'm wondering if there's going to be like 2-port BC. I know GuMiho is one of the best surprise battlecruiser rush players out there. He's done it a bunch of times to great success, but it feels like it got overused by not just him, but other players for a while around the time of Katowice and just before then, and like Home Story Cup and that sort of stuff late last year. So I think it's fallen out, but when something falls out of the meta, that becomes good again, right? The players aren't necessarily thinking about it. So there's this constant game of surprise in StarCraft. The fog of war is just such a big factor. We get to see everything, and it's a very different experience to play as the actual player with that limited info. That's what's so good about watching these players' streams as well when they're doing first-person view, because you get to see what it's like when you really just don't have anywhere near as much context. There's so much of you imagining what's happening in the map using good estimates, but you never know for sure if you're on the money or not.
Yeah, definitely. You can also kind of learn some of the tells that you wouldn't really consider yourself. Like, for example, seeing a depot in the wall off of the Terran's natural, it oftentimes means that there is, no quick third command center. Those little tells that they'll usually bring up during their streams where you may get things that you wouldn't have normally considered yourself, little bits of scouting information, because you're very right. You're always dealing with a very limited amount of information, and it can be difficult to interpret exactly what's going on in the game. I mean, if you're countering battlecruisers and it turns out it's a 16 Marine drop and you've got yourself like 12 Queens and 18 Sport Crawlers, it's a situation to be in.
Not at all, mate. And, interesting. A second barracks coming up here for GuMiho off his command center first build. So, barracks factory into a second barracks. This seems like it could be a Hellbat timing with like stim, about 20 Marine stim and some different interesting weird curves that could come about. Reaper is just on defense duty for now. DarK starts a very well-timed Zergling speed, and his Ling's going to come in for the scout. Can see that this orbital's already done, knowing that it is command center first.
Yeah, and that's always nice information to have in this particular matchup, although at this point there's really nothing that DarK can do about it anymore. There's the tech lab coming up that you were talking about. There's also a starport building, however, so we'll have to see if he decides to go for the switcheroo or if he indeed does decide to start up that Stimpack upgrade here momentarily. We haven't really seen a lot of aggression coming out of DarK, so maybe he was actually... we had some aggression in the previous game, I suppose. There's the Stimpack, but we haven't really seen anything super committed from our Zerg player yet. So maybe, you know what, he wasn't memeing in that interview we saw earlier. Maybe he actually doesn't feel like cheesing is the best way to play the big tournaments, but he just likes to do it in, the weekly cups that he participates in all the time.
I feel like DarK is like the cheesiest guy ever in those weekly cups. It's fascinating to watch because it feels like he's just thinking of things and doing them and having a crazy success rate with it as well. Engineering Bay already on the way for GuMiho So it looks like he's going to go for a very fast +1 upgrade. This is definitely a GuMiho special. Hellions building 1 at a time, Marines 3 at a time. Stim is on the way. It's a very odd mix of units that he's got going.
Okay, so now, well, DarK sees a medevac and he sees a bunch of Marines. He doesn't really scout much, but that's one of those scouts that you can still get some information out of. DarK immediately starts up the Roach Warren here. He starts up mass Zergling production. And I actually quite like this for him, to be honest, even though he loses that Overlord and he doesn't see exactly what's going on. As long as he gets units out at the correct time, he should be okay. As this turns out to just be a little hit squad, mostly to snipe down a couple Overlords.
Yeah, pushing back the map vision, can also drop it in the main a little bit as well. He's going to join up these Hellions with the other medevac, Marines, and Stim on the way. Behind it, 3rd Command Center and Siege Tank starting up. GuMiho's got a vicious little timing coming in. If he can get in there before the Roaches are out, he'll be good. If DarK builds more drones, and he did just build 10 drones not long ago, that's actually really bad for DarK because he's only got a handful of Zerglings. 2 Roaches only now starting up. Yet interestingly, GuMiho's going to go for the multi-prong. Wow, okay, so he's going to try and dive in the 3rd with the Hellions, I believe, while the drop comes into the main. Here we go, let's see if it works.
Yeah, there's not really that many units available here for DarK just yet. He desperately starts up 2 Roaches, but that's not really going to be enough. There's barely enough units available to deal with this in the main base, and at the same time, yeah, there go the Hellions in the picture-in-picture over at the 3rd base.
Great response so far by DarK. He's only lost 3 drones in mining time. That could have been a lot worse. But the Spore Crawler, the Queens, they all buy him time. And DarK gets away with having basically nothing to defend. But he buys himself a moment. A few Roaches are out. More are now.
Careful, careful, careful.
Oh!
Okay, he does grab a lot of those drones as they return to their post right here. And what started as an amazing defense right there for DarK. Okay, it's now a bit of a disaster. 16
The Lings jumped up into the Marines as well. He just threw his Marines away as well as losing those drones, Loco. So I'm not sure what happened with DarK's control at that moment. That honestly seems like one of those things where it's like your mouse freezes or something. It was a very uncharacteristic mistake for DarK, but GuMiho was already in a good position. He pounces, and now he's in a massively amazing position. Roach speed's on the way. DarK's trying to recover his workers, but the next push is already coming through the middle.
Yeah, whenever I make mistakes, I always blame it on the mouse as well, Piggy. It's definitely the way to do it. But no, you're right.
I'm from Australia, so whenever I beat anyone, it's lag. So I hear you, mate.
There it is. Anyways, this next timing right here for GuMiho is going to hit like an absolute truck. And yeah, DarK is not even going to try. GG is cold, and GuMiho once more leads the series. He decided to return to the game. Look at him. He is killing whatever he can get.
Don't you hate it when your opponent leaves before you get to butcher their economy, mate? He's like, no, you can't deny my satisfaction. Continue, game. I know you're not commanding the units anymore, but I'm still going to enjoy taking them out. Got to get that satisfaction, get that cathartic release at the end of the game there. And well deserved. GuMiho had a really cool build. I actually was kind of feeling bad for him that he didn't get more damage on the first wave. I was like, it's good, it's mining time. Spore Crawler, 3 drones. You know, it's not bad because he didn't really lose any units. So it was still good for him, but I felt like he caught DarK so off guard. It could have done a lot more. And just when we were saying DarK was kind of out of the woods, he let his drones just all get focused down. His Roaches were kind of out of position. He ran his Lings into the Marines. It was kind of like a few things all went wrong at once for DarK. So look at this perfect defense, even though he's caught off guard. And don't get me wrong, he was being very greedy, you know, but really feel like the double Evo chamber coming up, the Roaches were all coming out. He just needed to run those drones away. And instead, all the Queens and Roaches were up in the main base and just a little bit too slow to react. He looked so good up until that point, but it is what it is. He's down 1-2. I feel like if anyone can make a reversal happen from this situation, it's got to be DarK.
Yeah, no, you're definitely right. He had those drones protected too, right? They were in the natural, and he wanted to get them back to mining as quickly as he possibly could. And, well, it turns out he should have waited another 10 seconds or so to the point that those Hellions disappeared. I do like the fact, though, that GuMiho was looking at that. He was ready to retreat. He was ready to go back home and set himself up for that next wave. And he's like, wait a second. I've got 3 drones. You've got stacked up drones. Or I've got 3 Hellions, rather. You've got stacked up drones. I'll try my hand at sniping a couple of those bad boys. And, well, he ended up getting quite a few. And that means we make ourselves to a Babylon, which is game number 4 with a lead for GuMiho. But spotting right here in the bottom right-hand corner of the map, we have DarK.
His opponent in the top left side of the map, the Terran Mastermind, it's GuMiho.
Gotta
We were
say, I
talking
do
about
love-
GuMiho's successes in that last game, Loco, and it's kind of cool to think about it that when GuMiho did get that GSL championship 5-6 years ago, battle cruisers are what he used to take out Su. And they were the old battle cruiser. They couldn't move and shoot. Their attack point was way lower as well, which is like a weird stat that makes them basically just shoot slower. So it's kind of funny to think GuMiho was teleporting in a much worse version of the battle cruiser to 3-4 bases at once, like, 6 years ago, winning GSL tournaments with it. He's always been at the cutting edge of unique builds, and we saw it in that last game where, like, the Hellions building one at a time, the Stim, the Medivacs, just really cute creative timings, and also making it hard for DarK to figure out what he's up to in these games. It's been a really good mix of bio, mech, bio, oddball mixes of the two as well, where you get Speed Banshees that looks like a mech play, but then you go back into bio. I really like the way he's keeping DarK guessing.
100%. Yeah, we've got the so-called established standard, right? The meta that we call it usually. GuMiho likes to play it a little bit differently. He likes to mix things up a bit and go for his own strategies, and that is what is making this so difficult for DarK. DarK has not really... He can't have a lot of practice against these weird build orders that GuMiho is throwing at him, right? And it's difficult to react. Now, if anybody is capable of doing it, I do think, DarK would be the one who can defend against that shenanigans of Gumi here, but he's constantly guessing. And we had a really quick gas geyser here for Gumi this time around, so he's following it up with a good old factory.
Yeah, that could just be to get some faster tech out. A very quick 4 Hellion dive is one of the most popular things to do off a gas first opening. You just kind of get those Hellions in the moment they pop and see what damage you can do. For now, he's being very defensive with his Reaper. GuMiho, he's not been SCV scouting this series. So if this goes to a game 5, if DarK wins this game, he could be a wild man and just bust out a 1-base Ravager all in. Simply because, it's such a gamble, but if you every game don't SCV scout, you do leave yourself wide open.
No, you're definitely right. It's one of those builds that loses against the scout, but if nobody is scouting, well, you may as well give it a try. And DarK is certainly not crazy. He's certainly the kind of crazy Zerg who will be happy to throw that out in a game 5 of a best of 5 series. I would not be too surprised, but so far he's once again opening up with a normal macro build. Generally, if we're going to see a Roach push, the absolutely latest that we're going to see a Roach Warren would be at like 3:30 or so. Maybe a little later than that, but it's a quick Cyclone right here for Gumi. Okay, are we going Overlord hunting again?
Yeah, absolutely right. The Cyclone is all about locking onto Overlords and shutting them down. Could maybe get a Queen if you're lucky. And I imagine the factory will probably swap back and go into Hellions after that.
I thought for a second he had canceled link speed right there, but DarK certainly is a little late in that upgrade. That's going to make the defense here quite tricky. Yeah,
DarK has been so greedy with putting back on gas super late lately, just so mineral focused, and he's like, oh yeah, if I can get another drone or two earlier and delay link speed, I'll get away with it, because it's so rare for players to do the Hellion dive anymore, and DarK's definitely been quite risky on that as a result, trying to capitalize on the Terran's habits. But a nice first Overlord snipe. Stim is on the way behind. It looks like GuMiho wants to stick with bio play. I wonder if DarK's going to go back to Ling Bane. I mean, with Ling speed on the way, it looks like it's highly likely. But he's been opting for the safety Roach Warren in all of the games so far. This might be the first one where he just goes straight Zerglings.
Okay, so Cyclone's not a unit we usually see in this matchup this early on. Usually the mid game is where those units come out, but you know what? The Medivac providing the vision right there that the Cyclone needs, and the Marines get to just sort of observe this battle from the plane. They got specialty seats right there in the Medivac. But for now, though.
Yep, let's hope it stays that way. It's not fun to get dropped onto creep and told to attack the infestation. It's basically the worst exterminator job you could possibly get.
Get your boots dirty as well. Wouldn't want that with your brand new Marine suit, man. These Marines just put on their new boots and wouldn't want to get them dirty.
Might be the least of their worries, but definitely I'm sure there is one, Billy Bob III Marine sitting there in that medevac worried about his boots and being shiny. He listened to everything the drill sergeant said back in barracks school, and here we go. He's going to be coming in for another drop on the edge, looking for yet another Overlord. Roach Warren is still coming in, so it feels like Roach play just seems to be like DarK's like, hey, this guy plays mech a lot. He does weird builds. Roaches aren't bad versus bio either, so let's play Roach every game. and he'll probably be looking to swap back into Zergling Baneling after the 1-1 upgrades. You know, +1 range and then go for the melee after that. It's been what he's kind of just feels comfortable with. It feels like he can't really die to any sort of surprise maneuvers, or shouldn't, that last game being the exception. And GuMiho's been quite greedy behind this opening pressure. He's got a lot of SCV production. The upgrades are significantly ahead for GuMiho. But of course, DarK has a very healthy Zerg economy, up 20 workers already.
Yeah, DarK actually doubling down on the Roach tech, it seems, as he starts up the +1 missile. DarK seems to be one of the few Zergs who does like to transition from Roach Ravager into Lingbane eventually, but then it's usually that melee upgrade rather early. Maybe DarK wants to stick around on this tech for a little while longer. He's got a group of Zerglings. Obviously for Gumi, he can't really tell. So he can't really know exactly what he's playing against yet at this point in the game. I mean, you've seen a Roach War, but that doesn't really tell you the full story. Gumi is gonna go for an attack over here, but yeah, if DarK wants to go for a full-on push, he'll probably stop droning here very soon and just hold down the Roach button. And that's actually what he's doing is, well, yeah, he starts up 4 Overlords as well.
All right, Armory is coming in as well. Combat Shield's almost finished. Infestation Pit has started up right now for DarK. That 4th base looking like it's in trouble, but no, he's quick enough. He should be able to save that. The Corrosive Bile's forcing the Marines back. Want to focus down a few of these units. The Ravager Cocoon has a lot of armor, though. It refuses to die.
Yeah, I like that GuMiho was targeting it down and DarK was like, yo, I'll help you out with a bile myself. I think it was DarK ended up killing the one cocoon there. The Hero Cyclone from earlier still going to town, locking on just for a moment as well on the Ravager there, but it is going to be driving all the way back.
GuMiho really needs to turtle up and just build towards, if he wants to do a push, it has to be when he's almost maxed. DarK is playing this style with a quick hive, Baneling Nest. He's going to swap back into melee upgrades momentarily, and there is a window when you're maxed. Right now, though, DarK is pretty strong against a push. He doesn't have that many Ravagers. Maybe GuMiho can find something. The thing is, if this attack doesn't work well for GuMiho and he loses his siege tanks, he's way behind in this game.
Yeah, and DarK has a very nice timing against this as well, right? He just finished up the Roach 1-1 upgrades. He's also got the Roach speed finished. So this is a scary amount of Zerg here. If Gumi ends up losing the tanks, he is going to have a lot of Roaches and Ravagers knocking at his front door. The siege tanks in the back, though, I do like the position right here, but they're completely exposed. There's no units reinforcing this at all, so DarK just snipes them in a heartbeat, and I think DarK is going to go on the offensive. I mean, he's looked a little passive so far in this series, but if this was DarK playing a standard weekly cup and not qualifying for a massive tournament, he would certainly go for an attack, and I think that's what he does here today as well. I think that's the right call.
Yeah, that attack just gifted it to him, I think. GuMiho, by moving in there, he scanned, so he saw how much Roach Ravager there was, but he just misjudged the numbers. He thought, oh yeah, I think I can take a fight here, and it was like, no, he should have been unsieging, boosting home immediately. Nice counter drop. He is going to get a handful of drones here, but that only matters if it pulls the army home or if he can defend the attack, and I don't think he can. Here we go. Lots of Roach Ravager Zergling coming in. 4th Command Center is basically a freebie. There's only one medevac to heal these Stim Marines. GuMiho just trying to buy time, get more siege tanks, more Marines down here on this low ground. Losing those 2 tanks, you can really see how painful that is. If he had 2 more siege tanks here, DarK can't push in, but as it is, DarK knows he's got the numbers advantage. Ling's flanking the siege tanks from the bottom. A massive victory for DarK if he can break the position, but that choke point between the factory looking pretty tight. He doesn't take out either of the siege tanks. DarK with a bit of a slip up. He still kills a lot of workers, but I thought that was going to be a game-ending maneuver. GuMiho barely manages to hold.
Yeah, Gumi going for the second factory nice and early once again, and that's ultimately what is allowing him to defend here. Well, that plus the fact that DarK, well, softened up a lot of the siege tanks, but didn't actually kill that many. Still, though, he had to pay the price. 17 SCVs ended up going down. This is a decent economy available right now for Gumi, but it's nothing great. He starts up 3-3, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's going to be his bet, or his best bet, rather. Just a full-on assault as soon as he is maxed out on units as well as on upgrades. He decides to tiptoe to the creep once again. I mean, Baneling speed is finishing up here, and it's actually just done, I think. Yeah, it must have just finished up. Either that or DarK canceled it, but I would be very surprised. No, he's got the roly-poly upgrade finished, and pushing on to creep with those, well, rolling Banelings, it's incredibly difficult.
Yeah, I don't think any have morphed just yet, so I don't mind a bit of a trade out here, but he's got to be very careful. And the Queen's in the main in the picture-in-picture there, sniped down the medevac, and the Marines do get cleaned up. GuMiho's got to be careful about this. He doesn't want to throw too much army away because he's got to build towards that big maxed out 3-3 push that you were talking about. He's not really ready yet. I think he's trying to set up for it and create an opening in the creep, but he's so low on numbers that DarK actually could just flank that army and win the game right now.
Yeah.
DarK might not realize it, but GuMiho's army, I mean, he's playing with fire by being out of the map.
He never repaired that siege tank in the front either, which I don't really like too much. But now there's already Vipers available too. DarK doesn't really need to jump on this, but I'm with you. He probably could if he really wanted to. He has, however, got Adrenal Glands coming up. That is about a 40% attack speed improvement for Zerglings, which is fantastic. So I don't really mind him sitting back here for a little bit longer, inviting this Terran army on creep. But he does decide to pounce on top of this. Vipers, well, coming from the back as well. They're not even needed, man. There's just such a large Zerg army. There's the Parasitic Bomb on the Medivacs as well, shutting a lot of them down. And on the back of this, DarK has just got more and more Zerglings coming to reinforce this. They're going to have their upgrades available. And yeah, GuMiho's army just got shut down. I think that was his one chance in this game, but DarK defended that brilliantly.
Yeah, this is why there is a fundamental rule with Roach Ravager. It's very good at defending. Picking your attack timing is perfect. You know, you've got to be perfect with it. And I think GuMiho's first attack falling flat, losing those tanks, put him in a hard position. The fact that the supply is as even as it is and that he kept any position in the middle of the map is very impressive to me. But he doesn't have an answer to the Vipers. They're going to gather more energy, and Blinding Cloud round 2 is going to be coming in. GuMiho feels like, hey, I've got 3-3. Maybe I can do something. Yeah, I mean, 3-3 versus 2-2 is amazing. But it's going to be a stretch. He's floating his command center to the top of the map. GuMiho is basically digging for mistakes. DarK did it in game 1, right? Staying in a dead position, but just staying in the game, making his opponent work for it. GuMiho's doing that right now. He might only have a couple of percentage points of winning the game, but that's all you need. He's going to make DarK work for it just as hard as he had to. DarK does look like he's getting ready for the fight.
Yeah, this is a little dangerous though, because he would be fighting straight into sieged up tanks. I mean, he's considering it, but I wouldn't mind a full-on counterattack towards the north instead. But he does decide to jump straight on top of this Terran army. Zerglings in the back, Parasitic Bombs going down as well. No Blinding Clouds, no abductions just yet. Is there enough though for the Zerg player to push through all of this? I don't think I like this engagement here for the Zerg player very much at all. You brought it up, man. DarK was in a similar situation in game number 1. Now it's GuMiho ready to strike back.
Yeah, he's making this way closer than I think it should be, but well played by GuMiho. That position in the middle was great, and as you said, it was all Parasitic Bombs. It should have been Blinding Clouds to take care of the siege tanks. Now the Vipers, I don't know where they are. They're probably gathering energy in the back. They're going to come back for round 2, but they're a little bit behind the army. The Bio cleaning up these Zerglings. +3 Carapace kicks in only now. Partway through the battle, the Marines butchering the +2 armor Zerglings. Now the upgrades kick in, but DarK's army's already mostly gone.
Vipers very far forward. I don't think they should be here. Reinforcing Zerg units, though, are popping out of the cocoons, and he might have enough just barely to push back this Terran army. GuMiho now has the 4th base up and running too, by the way, on the back of this, which is super critical. So he can sustain this. Beautiful splits right here by our Terran player as well. I thought he was down and out, but DarK doesn't have creep here, and he just can't fight this. Now he's morphing in Banelings. Okay, that's a really, really tempting offer right there for the Terran, but he's forced to go back because of the Zerglings coming in from the 6 o'clock.
I think GuMiho needs to pull back. That's an overcommitment. Parasitic Bomb's going to clean up the Medivacs with the Queens. This was a very desperate situation. Remember, it's not a 4th base on the top. It's actually just his main that's floated down. So right. GuMiho doesn't really have a lot of production to back this up. His economy, it's okay, and it's definitely great utilization of that Terran mechanic, but I would have loved to see him just pull back, gather up, and then push one more time. But DarK did a great job of holding on. He's got nice creep on the bottom side of the map, a little bit of a creep highway heading down on that south side, keeping that bottom base alive. And 5 bases healthily mining versus just 3 base economy. Yeah, there's a fresh base for GuMiho, so we can definitely sustain one more push. But it feels like the Ravagers surviving and the Vipers surviving in a lot of the battles does give him the ability to keep doing this over and over again. With 4 more Vipers coming in, they're going to get guaranteed value with Parasitic Bomb taking out Medivacs and Blinding Cloud and Abduct taking out the siege tanks.
Very good game so far for DarK, but also an impressive one right here by Gumi, making a good game out of a very desperate situation. Okay, he's trying to remax once again. You can see right there in the units lost tab in the top left-hand corner of your screens exactly how well those trades have been going. So even though Gumi's economy isn't as good as DarK's, It's not even remotely as good as DarK's. He has been trading a little bit more efficiently, and that does justify at least some of these engagements. The thing is, though, he hasn't done crippling amounts of damage, right? DarK really should respread some of that creep in the center of the map, the one right outside of his third base. It's kind of empty. Yeah, he's got some tumors in that area as well, so I'd love to see those moving forward, because I think that's going to be the main attack path that GuMiho will choose once again when he's maxed out. But yeah, there's just not enough Terran economy, right? He can't really make a transition towards anything better.
Oh, and he's wide open to run bys as well. Nice biles on the siege tank there. GuMiho doesn't have any planetaries on a single base, so he's in big trouble if a single Zergling or Baneling run by hits him. That's why a large portion of his army is actually in the north of the map, because he expects DarK to go there. Because of that, he can't really stand and fight here. Those Marines need to get away from the Banelings. Great blinding clouds from DarK. DarK going to try to shove in the blinding clouds everywhere. 4 Vipers put more blinding clouds on top of that army than I think I've ever seen in one location.
Rapid fire blinding cloud, man.
Oh my gosh. You know, it was like, yeah, he thought they were force fields or something. They were everywhere. The bio moved back, got another blinding cloud, but losing the SCVs in the top. We knew GuMiho was in a fragile position, and DarK shows us just how fragile. He had the room to get those Vipers. He takes out all the economy in the north. He may lose this hatchery in the bottom, but it's not the most important. And when he remaxes back on Zergling, Baneling, he'll be good. That being said, I think DarK might have a lava shortage right now.
Yeah.
Because he's got a lot of money in the bank.
He's got 8 larvae available. I wouldn't mind seeing something like an Ultra Caravan, you know? I always like to go for an Ultra Caravan in these scenarios. Just, yeah, there you go. DarK's thinking the same thing. Because, yeah, the worst thing, like this game, it's basically a win, but the worst thing that can happen is that you've got a lot of money in the bank, you've got a superior economy, but no way to spend it. The Zerglings are very mineral cheap. They're, well, free in gas, but they obviously do cost quite a bit of larva, which in a way is a third mechanic right there for Zerg. But anyways, he's trying to just deal as much damage as possible, and I think this is forcing GuMiho to make himself up for one final attack, right? I mean, what else has he got going for himself in this game?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's been kind of doing that a few times in a row. He's hanging in there, and part of it is the longer you hang in, the more chance your opponent chucks a Zerg. Chucking a Zerg, of course, the famous maneuver where you find your opponent's best defensive position and headbutt your army into it and throw it away. Every Zerg's done it a few times versus Terran because, you know, they just don't have the same information, and the defender's advantage is good for Terran, but it's going to be hard to make DarK make that mistake. He's burrowing Zerglings around behind all the bases, forcing extra scans out. He's got so much economy. Double the work account. Chitinous plating is on the way, as well as those Ultralisks that you were calling for. Burrowed Banelings, and 6 of them almost take out Marauders.
He was a little late right there. He could have certainly gotten a lot more of those Terran units, and that may have actually forced out the GG. Wouldn't have been surprised. But GuMiho ends up not trading too poorly here. He once again is inviting the Zerg player off creep. He's like, come on, bro. Come play off creep, but that is the one move that I don't think DarK should make. He actually ends up losing the base again. Zergling counterattack, though, on the other side of the map. Deals a lot of damage.
Oh, you don't really want to attack around that corner. Good pullback for DarK, but getting damage on the other side of the map as well. GuMiho is trading so well versus these Banelings, but I think when the Ultras come out, we are going to see a vicious turn. Chitinous plating done in 10 seconds. With that chitinous plating, no doubt the Ultras will look for the attack. There's an army in the south of the map. Actually, he's going to go and backstab his DarK, sending a ton of Zerglings over to this base. There's not a lot of bio there to defend, and I think that's going to seal the deal. The Lings even unburrow from behind at the same time. From beneath you, they devour, and in comes DarK for what looks like a finishing blow. GuMiho actually going to try and commit, and yeah, that'll prompt him to run into Banelings.
Well, this is still a pretty decently sized Terran army, though. I don't think DarK really has quite enough to deal with all of it. He's going to try and split to the best of his abilities. Knock down the rocks. Not a move we normally see, and he's actually going to split off the Terran army. Brilliant fight right there once again by DarK, who's just waiting for, well, the rest of his army, I think, to come back home. A couple more Ultras here would be fantastic. He's cleaned up the Terran's economy on the other side of the map, and DarK is now also cleaning up his opponent's army, and that is going to seal the deal. But honestly, still an incredibly impressive game right there from GuMiho. It reminds me a lot of our first game on Altitude, right? It got very close once again. GuMiho tried clawing his way back into this match. That now means we're gonna get a map number 5 between these two.
Heck yeah, great way to start the day. So exciting. I'm really loving it. There's a little bit of me that's like, if only GuMiho didn't commit to that first tank push, because You know, we were saying like when it's Roach Ravager, it's sometimes a push like that works, but I'd say it's the most dangerous sort of attack that you ever go for. And the moment he scanned and saw the amount of Roach Ravager here, which he saw about 5-10 seconds before this happened.
Backed off, right?
Backed up, unsiege the tanks, pick them up in the medevacs, get out of there, and then you don't lose this 4th command center. You know, you can defend your 3rd. You're looking in much better shape. Instead, GuMiho was basically hamstrung from the start, and then showed all these excellent moves. And it always pains me a little bit when a player like GuMiho is definitely a big underdog here, is having such a good series, and he plays so well, but it's in the game where he's already so far behind, where I'm like, oh, if you're in an even game, these would be winning moves.
Your classic anime protagonist right here, man. He powers up after he falls behind. Why not just power up right from the start? It's like the right call to make, but yeah. Brilliant game right here, though, from both players. In the end, it's DarK who obtains the victory. I'm actually not sure who's going to end up taking this. I'm still sort of feeling DarK, just like I said at the very beginning of this series, but GuMiho is showing us that he is S tier, right? He's looking very strong. I would love to see a more aggressive build coming out of DarK. Wouldn't be surprised if he decides to go for something absolutely insane. Now, is it going to be a Ravager build, though? You were talking about a Ravager build if he would have won this particular map. Well, he's won it now. There hasn't been an SCV scout throughout this series, if I'm not mistaken, so there certainly is a chance, but is DarK crazy enough to go for something like that, though?
Proxy, 14 hatch, 14, 14 pool, 14 double gas. The everything on 14 build would be a killer against basically what GuMiho's done in all these games. But GuMiho is very smart, and I think he might just SCV scout in one of these like final games. So I'm also curious what map it is. I think it might be like NeoHumanity or something like that. So I just can't wait to see like what the strategies are. Is DarK going to just throw another Zergling run by and get an easy victory like he did in game 3? You know, get some lings in. DarK's very good at having a close hard fought series and then just catching his opponent off guard with one big sneaky move. It is indeed NeoHumanity, and down here in the bottom right side, he's a bit of a trickster sometimes. He's fighting hard to get back in this series today. It's Dragon Kaiser Gaming's DarK.
And even though DarK is a trickster, his opponent in the top left, a man who's been pulling out all the crazy builds with the blue SCVs, he is GuMiho. Quick gas once again.
Yeah, with that low ground wall off. So similar to some of those earlier games, I do like this kind of variation from GuMiho. And I really wonder what happens if it runs into the pool first, Roach pressure, which he was preparing for on Royal Blood, and then the Ling speed got him. But it's going to be a hatch first for DarK, so we don't get to figure out what goes on in that regard. Nice barracks placement. I think this is really cool. GuMiho's clearly played this so much. He wants that reactor to be really safe, and that's why he's building that barracks up there. The factory, the second structure, he can build in the more exposed location.
Yeah, definitely. We'll have to see if he decides to go for some more aggression here to start things off. Sometimes Terran players like to go for this build just to wall the natural. Just play a regular macro game on the back of this. Do you really want to put it all on the line, right? With another cheeky build?
It's dicey. Pays off big. The fans will say, genius, so smart. Oh, great instincts. When it works, and when it doesn't work, they'll go, what an idiot. Why would you gamble on that?
Yeah, you can't really make yourself look that smart if it goes wrong, that's for sure.
That's the gambling game, But there is an element of gambling in StarCraft in terms of any game with limited information. You can't cover yourself against every option. You can definitely hedge your bets a massive amount. I mean, guys like Serral are a testament to how good just defensive scouting reaction-based play can be. But there can be an element of that, strategic gambling, poker style. And we see the Reaper coming out. Reactor going down to follow up that factory. Will be very quick Hellions on the way. The Reaper comes in a little bit later with the gas first, so it should find absolutely no damage.
Oh, for sure. And this is something that DarK will have picked up on by now as well. He's already seen the factory at the front. Is DarK going to try and punish this in any way whatsoever? I mean, he's almost going to punish it by killing the Reaper. Probably not what he was intending on either, but making 6 of those Zerglings, making sure that he's going to be A-okay right here for the time being. As GuMiho is going to go for the good old switcheroo right here. He's going to go for the double Hellion production here right from the get-go. So very standard builds here from both players. Although maybe a yeah, a little bit of a quicker gas right there, of course, from Gumi.
Yeah, no third command center just yet. Still very standard, but just not, you know, it's kind of funny third command center. I remember that being kind of like the special economy build you would do, maybe half the time at most. And nowadays it's so standard with like Clem every game, a lot of these players. But GuMiho does prefer these 2 gas openings more often than not. Likes to mix in earlier starport units, probably Banshees, and it's not a bad map for Battle Mech. I don't mind it on here.
No, you're definitely right. Yeah, the problem with these kind of builds is that you're kind of forced to deal some sort of damage, right? You're supposed to at least slow down the Zerg in another... It doesn't really matter exactly how, but you gotta slow them down one way or another. Whereas with the triple CC start, you can match them in economy relatively easily. And this is really quite good right here for Gumi, trying to book one of those
extra Reapers right now, Loco. Yeah, extra Reapers coming in. He's even building a third one. Oh, great micro from GuMiho. Hasn't even lost a Reaper yet. Gets a Queen, almost gets a second one. Oh, he does. Taking out 2 Queens and a bunch of Zerglings. This is a fantastic start for GuMiho. The moment you see that extra Reaper as DarK, you got to pull your Queens back. You got to pull every Queen to the front. You've got to be really paranoid.
Yeah, for sure. You need to make sure you start up a defensive posture here, but he didn't want to lose the third. Didn't want to at least take so much damage on it, and losing those Queens, it's going to be tricky right now because there's Banshees on the back of this too. Do you want to commit right now into Spore Crawlers off of an economy of only 36? Probably not, although Cloak is gonna be a little behind this, so at the very least he should know about the Banshees. He starts up 1 right now, but he should know about the Banshees before the Cloak upgrade finishes.
DarK's being sneaky. He's massing Zerglings right now, but he hasn't shown any of them. Finally, GuMiho sees at least some of those Zerglings. That's really important. There's about 30 Zerglings on the map, and look, half of them are going out the right side, getting ready to flank. He's looking for the sandwich. DarK here has been very sneaky with his movement. Beautiful play by DarK. Comes in with the surround.
Yeah, and he's going to be able to grab all of those Hellions, all of those Reapers, all of this army will go down. He obviously had to sacrifice some of his own economy, but he's going to be able to drone up behind this very comfortably. Immediately fires up 11, 12 additional drones there, and yeah, hiding those Zerglings. Brilliant move right there from DarK. He shuts down that aggression. And in a way, these Banshees, right, they're like a leftover. They're supposed to be a 1-2 punch, but now the first punch is nowhere to be seen anymore. Now suddenly the Queens only have to dedicate themselves to cleaning up the Banshees, and that is a whole lot easier when you're not dealing with Hellions at the same time, although I think the Cloak kind of catches him off guard a little bit.
Going to take out that Spore Crawler between the bases as well as a Queen and a drone. Very nice. Overlord's dying to a Marine at home as well. GuMiho's still making a really good game of this. I feel if the Reaper Hellion didn't get surrounded, this game was looking so bad for DarK. But the surround keeps him in a very playable position. He's got that freedom, like you mentioned. Banshees on their own, nowhere near as frightening as Banshees and Hellions and everything mixed together. And behind it, double armory. I think we're seeing a return to the same follow-up he did in game 1. A couple Cyclones with the Hellions. And then it's going to be Thors, tanks, Hellbat drops, all the good stuff coming in for GuMiho. Potentially, anyway, he is going Hyperflight Rotors and still continuing Banshee production for now. But I think he's going to stop at about 4 Banshees and move over into the Cyclones and then the Siege tanks.
Yeah, I don't think you want to overcommit to the Banshees either, because in the end, they are sort of like glass cannons. They're very easy to accidentally lose. If you've got too much money invested in them, you'll likely end up losing the game if they get sniped. That being said, though, if DarK hasn't figured out that it's Terran Mech just yet, he's going to see that barracks flying across the map here very shortly. And he must have realized by now as well, okay, there's a little bit too much Hellion production in this game for it to be a conventional bio game. And now, well, this Overlord here is having a standoff against the barracks. And that can really only mean one thing.
Kind of a little bit of a shame to give that information away, because even if you delay the infestation pit in the hive like 20-30 seconds, it makes a big difference. Vipers are pretty crucial in these games. Hive should be starting up any moment now. 1-1 upgrades are a little ahead for DarK, but of course GuMihos aren't too far behind. 4th command center is on the way for him, as well as factories all building add-ons back at home. The Banshee's going to go for a bit of a flyby, see if they can grab some drones, slow down the economic buildup. No Queens in the main base. Remember, DarK does like to put every single Queen on one control group and run them around as one big blob of anti-Banshee. But the Banshee's getting 5 drones, being a bit of a nuisance. And no Hive on the way, just Overlord speed. So I'm really feeling like DarK is stalling out on lair tech and I guess just committing to Roaches, Queens, and Infestors. A style which, with good fungals, can pay off, but I don't know. To me, it feels like it's kicking in a bit too late, and this is like a style which he does to get back in games when he's in a desperate position, and he can survive with it. Very hard for him to actually win the game with this composition.
Yeah, you need to get a little lucky, right? You're almost hoping for a fungal growth right here as Zerg. Managing to land a fungal in the middle of that Cyclone Hellion ball would be amazing, because then the Roaches and the Ravagers can close the distance. He starts up the Hive as he starts up a Spire, and that's usually a clear indicator he wants to go to Broodlords. So Broodlord Infestor may very well be the play right here.
I mean, Broodlords, Rex, Siege Tanks, they do pretty decent versus Cyclones as well. It's hard to get more than the front couple of Cyclones in range to lock onto those Broodlords. That could be very effective. On the other hand, it's not a very mobile style, so Terran can just run around and pick away your bases. Guess what, though? It's NeoHumanity. There's not many angles to do run-bys on. It's a rather narrow map, so if there's ever a map to rush Broodlords on, this is it.
No, I'm with you. That's actually a really good point. This is a map where Broodlords do seem to shine. You can keep them sort of hovering around the center of the map, right? Now, there's not really a whole lot that the Terran player can do against it. You definitely have to make sure you're prepared, and maybe these Banshees are going to accidentally spot it, although seeing just a Spire, is that really enough? At the very least, it's going to give him the thought. That being said, though, he should probably start up Thor's Siege Tank production here shortly anyways, because he's not really getting much done with his unit composition as it is right now. He's got a lot of Hellions and Cyclones, but they're not being used very aggressively at all.
Yeah, obviously on this map, if you go too deep, you get surrounded, you get trapped because they just come in behind. So definitely something where he's got to be swapping over to those Thors, and the next step of the game. Oh, this is still a very scary position for GuMiho. I feel like DarK is maybe half a step ahead. Viper's on the way. It could still go either way. This is this very close game. The tank count building very quickly. But if you max out on just tank Cyclones and Hellions and get surprised by the first wave of Broodlords, it can just be a complete game ender. 5 bases up, 8 factories up. GuMiho will have great production. He should have 6 tech labs and 2 reactors, so we should see 3 more tech labs coming down in the moment in that production tab.
He still doesn't see the greater Spire, though. It is indeed going to be Broodlords right here from DarK. He's been getting very close to the vision. Yeah, he doesn't even know about the Hive, but I think that's a safe assumption to make at this point. If you're not prepared, though, against the Broodlords, well, can you tell us what happens, Pig? When suddenly 12 Brutes show up?
Yeah, your Siege Tanks decide to basically abandon all caution, shoot your own units as they try to fire on the Broodlings, and your whole army disappears. It's not a good feeling as a Terran player, but he's maxed out and he's starting to push, which allows him to start making some inroads into the Zerg territory. He really needs to find out about those Broodlords. The first 3 are morphing. Banshee's going to go after that melee upgrade. They're going to get it. Nice denial on that. No +1 melee, which means those... Oh, good split as well against the Parasitic Bomb. With no melee upgrades, +2 armor Thors are going to be so tanky. Like, Broodlings really need melee upgrades to do damage. Otherwise, you're going to have 4 damage Broodlings versus 3 armor Thors. It's going to take you 400 Broodling shots to kill a Thor. Just think about that for a moment. I mean, these Thors are basically immune. Losing that Evo chamber just before +1 melee finishes, that may end up being a game-winning snipe for GuMiho.
Yeah, no, you're very right. I was getting a little excited right there about the fact that he still has not seen the greater Spire, which really is too bad right here for Gumi. But he started up Thors already. He's going into the additional starports. We even have ourselves a fusion core coming up right now here for the Terran. So we'll have to see exactly what the plan is going to be right there for Gumi, but... Okay, he'll soon know exactly what he's playing against. Just having a handful of Thors out, though, really does help, especially with some Hellbats in the front. You can roast those Broodlings nice and quick. +2 vehicle plating just finished up as well, but DarK is ready to finally go for a big attack. And the question is GuMiho ready?
He's ready to give up this base, and that's exactly what he needs to do. He cannot fight here. He's got to be really cautious. He's sending a lot of army down the bottom left. You just don't want to throw it away. Big Banshee spread to try and cover it. Does evade too much Parasitic Bomb damage there. Hellbat Cyclone going to try and trade on these units. As long as the Fungal doesn't hit the Cyclones, I think he's doing really well. The Banshees actually chase off those Infestors. They're taking so much of the energy away from the Infestors and the Vipers. Well done by the Banshees. but the Broodlords will be able to start sieging that base. Thor's coming in. He's going to take out a Broodlord. DarK, watch out. He's not watching right now. DarK loses 3 Broodlords. Big mistake for DarK.
Yeah, now even the Cyclones are close as well. With a lock-on, they're going to be able to continue firing because of the scan. Those Thors will certainly win a straight-up battle, and once again, they're left mostly by themselves. I mean, he tried throwing a fungal growth to slow this all down, but that was a really important hold right there for Gumi. You were talking about giving up the base, and I definitely agreed, but he managed to keep it around, which is absolutely fantastic. 35 confirmed kills as well on the planetary fortress itself.
Yeah, those kill counts are going to start to get crazy with those Broodlings, of course, just spawning pretty much endless units. Still got a Cyclone squad on the right. The Banshees on the left did so much. They denied GuMiho's base like 3 times down here. This base has been denied so much. DarK's base, sorry. So DarK's still stuck on 5 bases. Up against a 5-base Terran who's now got a 6th base building in the top. The battlecruiser swap is amazing as well. I actually think GuMiho is outplaying DarK. DarK right now is going for Neural Parasite to mind control the Thors and the battlecruisers. That's going to be the big play that could get him back in this game.
Yeah, he's going to need a whole lot of Infestors, though, to pull that off. And honestly, also a little bit of luck. The Terran player needs to basically not see it coming, but it's... well, one of the few mechanics that Zerg has in the late game against an army like that, right? So it's something you should always expect. Nice lock-on right there to the Vipers at the very least, but the transfusions are keeping it alive. These Cyclones are running low, and I think he wants to get rid of them right now. He probably wants to trade them out for hopefully something at least somewhat efficient, so he opens up supply for additional battlecruiser production. Speaking of battlecruisers, though, they do take a long time to produce. So even though we've been seeing them on the production tab for a while, only just now is when the first one popped. Or I guess the second one. It just finished up as well. But either way, DarK may have a small timing window right now where he could go for an attack. But GuMiho is trying to buy a lot of time right here as well, just moving with whatever army unit he wants to trade out here so he can make more battlecruisers.
I really want to see GuMiho be patient here, find the Spires, especially if the Spires both next to each other in the natural, because I know there's a second Spire up right now, but I'll hold that thought. Roach Ravager moving in. He didn't lose the Roaches on the left side. Looks like on the right side, starts to deny a command center. But yeah, if we could check the Spires in the natural of DarK in a moment. Oh, spawning pool, looks like, yeah, both Spires. If he scans those and doesn't show the battlecruisers until he teleports them all on top, just instantly Yamato's the Spires, there's nothing DarK can do, because if DarK's army's maxed out, he can't build Corruptors. He's got a few out right now, but a few is not enough. If you suddenly go in with like 8 battlecruisers, kill the Spires, it can be just game over right there, because then you can go around the base, clear up all of their tech, and massively cripple your opponent. It's a big gamble, but when you're building BCs 4 at a time, you've got to be thinking about that finishing blow.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. I mean, Gumi has a lot of money in the bank as well. He's now securing another base to the right side of his own natural too, so he's going to be able to get even more money. And when you have that much income, I think it's a chance you want to take. He's scanning the front, but what he really should be scanning right here is the Zerg's natural, because without Mass Corruptor, there's really no way for DarK to kill all of those battlecruisers. That being said, though, Gumi is just trying to hide them for now, not really showing them to the Zerg player just yet. More Broodlords are coming up, and I don't think that's the unit that DarK needs.
Dude, that Mass Thor army on the right, what is GuMiho doing right now? If those get neural, it could be game over. Yeah. That's such a crazy risky move. Those are unsupported Thors. They are absolutely helpless. If they don't have tanks or liberators or something like that covering them, ghosts, which by the way, GuMiho apparently not too confident playing the ghost mech. He's just going to be going for it that way. The Thors moving around. The battlecruiser count is still growing, but only very slowly now. +1 air weapons has finished on them. The scans coming down on the army. GuMiho, he's trying to see, and he says, hey, there's not much anti-air. Oh, if he finds those Spires, I really think he might go for the dive. He just hasn't spotted them yet.
Yeah, now DarK knows exactly what is going on here. He now knows exactly what he's playing against. There's the Neural Parasite now that you were talking about, and that's the moment as well where the Broodlords are gonna, well, try their very best. The battlecruisers coming in as well. Yamato guns going down on every single one of those heavy hitters from the Zerg, but so much damage was already done by the Thors.
Yeah, the Thors actually took out a couple of battlecruisers. The first round of Biles unfortunately missed for DarK. But dude, that's such an expensive Zerg army to go down. The Thors, I told you they were helpless if unsupported, but GuMiho knew that. He used them as bait. He put them out, dude, like a lamb. It's the lamb they feed to the T-Rex in Jurassic Park. It's absolute bait. DarK took it, and he punished him for it. Unfortunately, there is Mass Corruptor coming in. DarK had a lot of bank. He will be able to get one more army, so it's not like it's a free win from here, but GuMiho is definitely far in the lead now. The units lost tab's got to look pretty good for him, I would imagine.
Yeah, he's forced out Mass Corruptor at this point as well. And, well, guess what? There's a lot more Thors on the production tab too right now for Gumi. DarK's going to have a ton of supply caught up in units that can't really shoot down. And dealing with Thors with just Roach Ravager, it's going to be a very difficult decision, right? Like, when exactly do you want to engage? GuMiho can continue fighting this whenever he's got the tactical jump off cooldown. As long as he can, well, get the battle cruisers to safety, I think he can continue fighting. He's got so many of them available. Keep in mind, they're not even fully upgraded yet, so he has got a chance. Well, sadly, right there for the Thor, he's going to be in some trouble, though.
Nice Neuroparasite, but the Thor survives. Man, they're a tough unit. And the 3-3 upgrades, of course, just looking so good. +2 air weapons about to finish on those battle cruisers. Yamato is always dangerous. I don't think there's enough infestors to be that scary. It's more the abducts, I guess, that could be painful on those battle cruisers. Pull them into the 22 corruptors. 22 corruptors should be enough to one-shot a battle cruiser, I believe.
I mean, you would imagine so, but one Yamato round, right, is going to take care of half of all of those Corruptors right away. With the support of the Thors, I think the battle cruisers would be pretty comfortable at that point, but you're definitely right. You don't want to overestimate your...
Whoa!
That's a couple of them going down.
Big move here for DarK. He's diving, gets rid of one of those BCs almost instantly, but the bow, exactly what you said, Loco. The Yamatos clean up half the Corruptors, the Thors blast the other half. DarK was not patient, he was not sneaky. He just threw the kitchen sink at him. He felt like he had the better composition. He said, cool, I'll engage the Thors on the ground, Corruptors dive on the battle cruisers. These units counter those counter those. This should work, but not when you're that obvious about it. I love the way GuMiho moved back with his Thors and then focused down the Corruptors. The battle cruisers Yamato'd very quickly. So many Terrans we see slow to pull out the Yamato focus, and they lose 3 or 4 BCs by the time Yamato lands. That was a brilliant fight. GuMiho, a master of Thor, held that battle cruiser here, making it very difficult for DarK, who no doubt does not have a lot of practice against these old school mech compositions that GuMiho's playing today.
Oh, he doesn't have Yamato cannon available again already, I don't think. But now there's missile turrets as well in the mix, and I love to see those. The reinforcing Corruptors, though, are starting to pick off the battle cruisers. We got some neural parasites as well, forcing a couple of those Terran units to switch side, and especially that Thor is dealing a ton of damage. Brute Lord's now coming in from the back as well. As soon as he's trying to jump them back, but as soon as the battle cruisers decide to re-engage, that's when the Corruptors also go back in.
Thors are building 5 at a time for battle cruisers and Hellions as well. DarK seems to have taken the better end of the tail end of that trade. GuMiho wants to stall things out. He wants to be able to get more and more of those Yamatos. You know, the Yamato tax is something we talk about, where the Terran just basically gets a guaranteed kill with every single Yamato that goes off. So the more of that, the more you prolong the game, the more the battle cruisers will be able to get that value. Hellion's going to be denying a few drones on the bottom side as well. I like that. Just making it so DarK has to have a bunch of ground army, keeps having to make Roach Ravager.
Okay. GuMiho certainly will have Yamato gun available again, though, for the next engagement. And I think he should try to get that going as soon as possible. Is that the only amount of battle... No, there must be more battle cruisers than just these. Okay, there's 8 of them available right now, but is that the 4 that just spawned in the main base? I guess so. That many must have gotten picked off then. That is actually very significant. This has just bought DarK so much time in his game.
And look, he's ahead in the bank now as well. So it's actually looking like a game that could go for a while longer, and whoever gets to mine out those edge bases, that's going to make a difference. DarK also realizes he wasn't fully upgraded, so he's starting his +3 melee carapace and air carapace. So that's really good that he's getting all those extra upgrades. GuMiho's +3 weapons is about to finish. Don't know if he ever made building armor or anything like that. Oh, he's going to do the battle cruisers. Oh, yeah, GuMiho's embracing the slow game. He's just going to do a run by, kill a bunch of drones, Yamato a hatchery, and then teleport out.
Yep, he's going to be using that ability defensively rather than offensively, as he's going to sneak all of the big plane units towards the bottom left-hand corner, and they're going to be able to take care of these structures very quickly. They're going to finish up the +3 momentarily too. He just needs to teleport them out before the Corruptors start the engagement. That's something we see even at this level of play, where the battle cruisers are just not paid attention to. Okay, this is where DarK goes on the hunt. If he can... Oh, no.
Oh, great catch for DarK there, but good reaction speed by GuMiho. Does manage to teleport out. Roach Run By does get a reactor, so slightly limits the production, but mostly just making GuMiho run around and not that much direct damage. Now, Blinding Cloud on the Thors really ruins them when the fight happens. Neural Parasite on the Thors, we've already seen his massive Thors annihilate battlecruisers. I really am curious to see, because I think as the spellcaster count grows, I think ghosts are actually necessary. I think without the threat of EMP, DarK can be way too ballsy.
I'm with you. Like, if you think the ultimate Zerg army, this is basically it, right? DarK is making it right now. Whereas GuMiho still has some value to gain in units like, for example, Ghosts. Maybe you could even mix in a Raven or two. That might be kind of nice as well. But I guess a Neural Parasite on a Raven would be kind of scary. Either way, GuMiho's army definitely could, well, still grow a little bit in strength here. He's playing an amazing series, but now he's playing one of the very best Zergs in the ultimate late game. This is a very difficult position, I think, for, well, really both players, but DarK always strikes me as somebody who's really comfortable in this spot.
Indeed, DarK has been here many times before, and what's so great about DarK is he shows insane mental flexibility. I think Raynor might be a better late game player than DarK. It's just he mentally gets frustrated that he has to go to late game, right? Whereas DarK never does. I think DarK has the best mentality out of any player in the world. You put him in a bad position where anyone else is frustrated and thinking about the mistakes they've made. DarK seems to have like no delay between making mistakes and accepting that he's made them and just moving on to like, how can I play the best possible game from where I am right now? He's so good at saying, oh, I tried to cheese you, I tried to rush you, it didn't work. Now we're playing mid game. Now we're playing end game. Oh, now I need to drag this game out, mine every resource, take the most efficient, patient spellcaster engagements of all time. And he'll do it. He's happy to sit here for another 30 minutes if that's what it takes.
GuMiho may be being a little too passive with the battlecruisers for my liking. He should probably be harassing with them a little bit more frequently. The main thing is that he's scared right now, right, of accidentally getting fungled. If these battlecruisers end up getting fungled, you can't jump back to safety, and that will oftentimes be the end for all of those big Terran planes. That being said, though, he's coming in once again. This is right around the same time. Yeah, he can hit a couple Yamatos too. Bada bing, bada boom. That's half of the... Okay, maybe not half. Maybe a third of the Corruptors going down, but at the cost of a battlecruiser too.
Yeah, 8 Corruptors for 1 battlecruiser. That's a trade anyone's gonna take, mate. If someone offers you that down in the bazaar, you're gonna take it, you know? it's discount times 5, man.
Careful though, so many infestors over here. Okay, he does have scans available, siege tanks in the back. I'm still a little afraid we're gonna see the entire Terran army get, well, Neural Parasite.
Oh, this is a good trade, though. Definitely an overextension for GuMiho, it feels, leaving 2 Thors, a bunch of tanks, and now the battlecruisers. Teleport might not be ready. What's he doing? GuMiho caught with his army off guard. A counterattack on the right side of the map distracted him. Everything gets neuraled. He was playing such a perfect game. And just like that, patient like a snake in the grass, DarK distracts him on the right side and then pounces. Oh my lord, that was devastating.
Yeah, DarK on the hunt for exactly a mistake like that for the better part of the last 10 minutes, and he found the perfect opportunity. Those battlecruisers were just sort of sleeping there, hanging out in a little bit of space without any of their abilities available, and now DarK is going to be able to go in for the counterattack. And the best part is that Zergling run by also still dealt a lot of damage on the other side of the map, taking care of the battlecruisers, and now suddenly DarK is hunting down the production of GuMiho. GuMiho still has a lot of money in the bank. He's going to pop out a lot of units, but if DarK can get on top of that production, and I love these Corruptors hanging out here, yeah, if DarK can get on top of the production like he is right now, this is going to be incredibly hard to reinforce right here for Gumi. One mistake, man, that's all it takes.
A huge mistake as well. Let's be honest. I mean, GuMiho was attacking the Zerg player in a late game. Attacking is so dangerous, and he needed to pull out of there. I think he looked away, thought he told his army to retreat, but then they all started getting caught by the Neurals. The battlecruisers were left behind a little bit with no teleport ready. And that's why you've got to be so cognizant of the fact that when your battlecruisers aren't able to teleport, they're so vulnerable. You've got to be ultimately patient. You've got to be so very, very patient to make sure that you can bring this game together. And in the end of the day, it was DarK who had the patience. A rough start to the series, but he shows such amazing experience. And of course, there we go. We're going to be going back over to James, no doubt, in just a moment. Take it away, James.
Yeah, I just kind of appeared there, didn't I? Bloody hell. Well, we've got ourselves the victory finally in this series, but it was a Bobby Dazzler here. What a series we just witnessed. I've got Ben as well as Mr. Wardy to join me for this one. Where do we even begin, Ben? I guess in those final moments, it was looking so good for GuMiho through so much of this game, but eventually, small things make it slip away.
Yeah, I mean, like, honestly, the first game of this series, it feels that long ago that it feels like it happened in a different tournament entirely. The first game on Altitude was a what the hell is going on kind of game. Like, literally, they both wiped each other out down to 50 supply and then rebuilding. Like, there was moments like this where it was like, is it actually happening? Like, is DarK able to fight back kind of thing? But honestly, one of the best games that I've seen in like the last 6 months kind of thing. It was super damn cool. DarK managed to tie things up. He just got some lings in early on and did a lot of damage, and then GuMiho just was trying to do GuMiho things, tried to get out a few Banshees, tried to go like kind of a lot of tanks into late bio, but yeah, honestly, just an absolute brutal series, and I have to commend GuMiho, even though he lost in this series. He played way better than I thought he was going to do. And he wasn't like some one trick at all. He mixed up his builds throughout the whole series. He could play bio, he could play mech. His micro was super on point too. Like, all these engagements, he was doing all the splitting that you have to do, blocking with the Marauders. And, you know, GuMiho really made a fan of you. Made a fan out of me today, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. These highlights presented by Aramco, of course, and Wardy. Initially, I'd planned coming up here being like, GuMiho's greatest strength is fortitude, endurance. But, I mean, by the end of that game, it didn't really work out quite like that. DarK, though, going toe-to-toe with the long game that GuMiho was planning was an excellent series overall.
I mean, the series just had it all, right? Just aggression, crazy games, super down to the wire that first game as well. This game was, I thought, GuMiho's to win at multiple points as well. Just absolutely epic StarCraft 2, I think it's fair to say. Like, the PCs here, the biles missed, and then they actually missed the biles while they were fungal later on as well. This fight was just ridiculous. I thought this was it for DarK. I thought he was just dead, but...
Great.
Problem with mech is you just can't necessarily keep going with these pushes, and it takes a little bit while to kind of rally up the next set of units compared to, like, say, bio. And in the end, DarK just keeping on finding fantastic fights and just keeping on trying, because he's resilient. He will stay in the game. He is such a bug to get rid of, right? And yeah, I think that's obviously a big part of him being able to find success here at all, because if he wasn't, then GuMiho would have had this series easily, because a lot of these games DarK had to absolutely grind out.
Yeah, if you're going to rely on battle cruisers being able to get away from the Corruptors here with teleport, you can't let anything slip away from you here, Ben. Are there any other decent answers that Terran has against kind of these mass Corruptor style coming in? Because it felt like once the BCs got caught, it was GG.
If I'm super honest, like, after that fight happened where the BCs cleaned everything up and the bios missed a little bit, I think the best thing that GuMiho probably could have done is if he had 10 factories behind it ready and pumped out a super mobile army of just Hellion Cyclone or something.
Okay.
Because the reason you want all the Thors and the battle cruisers is because it's so, like, those Broodlords become fairly redundant. Like, you kind of need the Broodlords, but then trying to get them up and running again, you need to get the Corruptors out, then morph them into Broodlords, and you're scared about that because you have to keep them in Corruptor form because these battle cruisers are still alive. But then it's like everything else that you get out that's very quick, such as Zerglings and what have you, Hellions deal with, and then the Cyclones are there to just back up as well. So I think GuMiho, when he tried remaxing again on Thors and made his army very slow, all it takes then is one teleport where he's out of position, which is what happened over on that left side. And yeah, just a bit brutal, because you saw at the end there, his bank was huge, but he just couldn't do anything with it. So I think a little bit of momentum was lost there. But overall, I'm just, again, really impressed by GuMiho. It's one of those series where I'm like more impressed with the loser just because of how much of a fight he put up.
I do understand. It's a little bit of a heartbreaker for GuMiho as well as the GuMiho fans out there, but it's not over by any means, because we're in the Kalaris triangle right now, but we'll move on to the Kalaris bracket here for the Korean side of things in just a moment and confirm what has just happened here with DarK advancing on into Gamers 8 after a grueling 3-2 here down in the lower bracket. Congratulations to DarK for being able to advance on, but for my money here, Wardy, I feel like this was series of the tournament so far, series of the qualifier. What a game.
Far and away, mate. There was absolutely no question about it. The first game made the series of the tournament already. We were kind of saying, man, especially after yesterday, there's a few 3-0s. The first game, we're like, okay, this is good. And then it just got better and better. And, there was a couple quick games, but the overall series was just amazing. And of course, what a run DarK had to go on to get here. And there was just like a small bracket, but he really had to work to get it against Creator. And then this series against GuMiho, what a well-earned qualification when we probably considered DarK as somewhat of a shoe-in, right? Like, absolutely he's going to make it. But like, he really had to work for it.
Yeah, I mean, I said at the beginning of this, oh wow, GuMiho, he's had to play a Protoss, a Terran, and now he's going up against the Zerg. DarK's done exactly the same thing. He had to go up against Solar, didn't quite make it in that upper bracket, and then had to go up against Creator, now defeating GuMiho here in this series. Final thoughts, Ben, before we move on to our next one and break, etc.?
No, just kind of funny that DarK had to slog it out in this qualifier, playing the maximum amount of maps he possibly could. But yeah, he definitely delivered, didn't he? Like, even in the games that he lost, he was still putting up a strong fight. And yeah, I look forward to seeing GuMiho in the next qualifier, or whatever he's next in, because this is some really, really cool play out of him. Yeah,
that's important to note as well. He still has an opportunity to go to Gamers 8 because he will be playing in the second qualifier that is happening next weekend as well. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Time now to head to a break here at Gamers Without Borders. When we return, we have one more series for our Korean bracket to go. It's going to be a belter as well. It's Maru versus Hero. Don't go anywhere.